Yunyao looked at him and asked solemnly, "Emperor, is the heavenly consort in Yunshao Palace?" Long Yunshao shook his head and said with a complicated tone, "Ever since that incident, the heavenly consort left Yunshao Palace and left the monarch's residence. I've already sent people to look for her, but there's been no news." Hearing this, Yunyao's expression changed slightly. She hurriedly took out the letter and handed it to Long Yunshao. "Someone sent me this letter just now. Take a look." Long Yunshao frowned and a strange look flashed through his eyes. He took the letter and opened it, then took out an identical letter from his interspatial ring. "Coincidentally, I also received a mysterious letter just now. It's exactly the same as yours." Yunyao took the letter and saw that the two letters were indeed the same. She immediately frowned and said with a serious and doubtful expression, "It seems that the heavenly consort must have been in danger after she went missing. She was most likely captured. The other party sent us this letter to ask us to save the heavenly consort." Long Yunshao nodded and said, "Yao Yao, this matter needs to be carefully considered. It's enough that the other party captured the heavenly consort and sent me a message. Why did they send you an identical letter? I suspect that there must be some kind of conspiracy behind this." Yunyao frowned and asked in a deep voice, "What's the other party's motive for asking us to save the heavenly consort?" Long Yunshao pondered for a moment but didn't have any clue. He said in a serious tone, "Everyone in the world knows the heavenly consort's identity. If the other party is a human, even if they captured the heavenly consort, they wouldn't dare to kill her. The heavenly consort is my wife in name. I'll naturally send people to save her. Yao Yao, this matter has nothing to do with you. You don't need to pay attention to this letter." Yunyao was silent for a moment. She held the two letters with both hands and secretly checked them. With the special talent of the celestial sacred body, she quickly found that there was a trace of a foreign race's aura in the two letters. Unfortunately, the two traces of foreign race's aura were very weak and faintly discernible. Yunyao could only determine that the two traces of foreign race's aura were almost the same, but she couldn't tell what race they belonged to. She told this to Long Yunshao. Long Yunshao immediately revealed a surprised expression. "There's a foreign race's aura in the two letters, and it's the same. Could it be that the person who sent the letters is a foreign race? Or perhaps, the person who wrote the letters is a foreign race? Could the heavenly consort have been captured by a foreign race?" Yunyao thought for a moment and said with a serious expression, "The central continent city and the monarch's mansion are inhabited by both humans and foreign races. It's normal for the aura of foreign races to appear. Just based on this point, it's very difficult for us to determine who captured the heavenly consort. Son of Heaven, I'll go with you to find the heavenly consort. It'll definitely be faster and easier than you sending your guards to find her. After all, I have the celestial sacred body's bloodline. I'm very sensitive to the aura of other races. I should be able to help you." This. Long Yunshao hesitated and didn't answer. He instinctively wanted to refuse. He didn't want Yunyao to be involved in this dangerous plot. However, it was rare for Yunyao to travel with him. He didn't want to miss this opportunity to be alone with her. After thinking for a moment, he finally nodded and agreed. "All right, since that's the case, let's work together to rescue the heavenly consort. I want to see who the other party is. They actually dare to disregard the dignity of the imperial court and make a move on the heavenly consort. They're plotting against me." After saying that, Long Yunshao brought Yunyao out of the main hall. Both of them were in the heaven origin stage. They didn't bring any guards or attendants. After leaving the Yunshao palace, the two of them flew across the sky as fast as lightning and rushed towards the exit of the monarch's mansion. The location mentioned in the two mysterious letters was Mount Yanhui in the southern outskirts of the central continent city. That mountain range was located 300 miles south of the city. It wasn't eye-catching at all. Long Yunshao and Yunyao had both heard of Mount Yanhui. They knew that it was a mountain range that was hundreds of miles long. There were several peaks that were thousands of feet high. However, the letters didn't mention which mountain they had to go to rescue the heavenly consort and so on. Chapter 7:12. When the sun was high up in the sky, Long Yunxiao and Yunyao entered the depths of the mountains in the southern suburbs and arrived at Swallow Return Mountain. Looking down from high up in the sky, they saw towering mountain ranges stretching out in all directions. Towering dark green peaks were located in each mountain range, exuding an ancient and majestic aura. The two of them stood in the sky above Swallow Return Mountain and looked down at the three peaks below. The three mountain peaks were all thousands of feet tall, and they all looked the same. There was nothing special about them. Yunyao secretly circulated her energy and used her celestial sacred physique bloodline to detect the aura of the foreign races. However, she found nothing and couldn't detect the aura of the foreign races. Long Yunxiao's eyesight was very keen and he immediately saw the clues. Yao Yao, look. There are many cracks in Swallow Return Mountain and a large part of the forest has been destroyed. There are still many pits left. Judging from the cracks and pits, there must have been a fight here before. Moreover, it must have been a fight between several Sky Origin stage experts. Yunyao looked in the direction he pointed and saw that the towering mountain was full of cracks and a large part of the lush forest had been destroyed. There were more than a dozen deep pits and ravines on the entire Swallow Return Mountain, turning it into a mess of ruins. Yunyao frowned and said in a deep voice, "That's right. A fight did happen here. Let's look for it first." After saying that, she and Long Yunxiao landed on the mountain range. The two of them split up and released their spiritual senses to conduct a carpet search. 3 hours later, the two of them had thoroughly searched the entire Swallow Return Mountain range. However, they didn't find anyone, nor did they find any useful clues. Both of them were full of doubts. Yunyao frowned and asked, "Son of Heaven, we've already searched the entire Swallow Return Mountain range but found nothing. The other party isn't here at all. They didn't hide Heavenly Consort here either. What are you going to do?" Long Yunxiao also frowned and said helplessly, "We don't have any other clues except for those two letters. What else can we do? In my opinion, we should just wait here and act according to the circumstances. Since the other party sent us a letter to come here, they must have taken action." Yunyao thought for a moment and nodded. "That's the only thing we can do. Let's wait and see." Therefore, Long Yunxiao used his formation skills to set up a Heavenly Origin defensive formation on the mountain peak. The defensive power of this formation was not bad, but it only had a radius of 10 meters, which was just enough to cover a patch of grass and a millstone. After setting up the formation, Long Yunxiao and Yunyao sat upright on the millstone and closed their eyes to rest, waiting silently. The sun continued to set in the west, and time passed quietly. The peak of the mountain was very quiet. Only the sound of the mountain breeze blowing through the forest could be heard. Unknowingly, the afternoon passed. Long Yunxiao and Yunyao waited until dusk, but no one appeared, let alone the person who sent the mysterious letter. Their patience gradually wore thin, and the worry and uneasiness in their hearts grew stronger and stronger. At this moment, in the sky not far away, a dark red cloud suddenly floated over. At first glance, the dark red cloud looked like a sunset that had been dyed red by the setting sun. However, the red cloud was extremely fast, streaking across the sky like a bolt of lightning. Within a few breaths, it had arrived above the mountain. Long Yunxiao and Yunyao immediately sensed that something was wrong. They both opened their eyes and looked up at the red cloud above their heads. They saw that the red cloud had a radius of 1,000 meters, and its color was dark red as if it was condensed by blood light. The red cloud exuded a strong smell of blood, and it kept rolling and surging, containing a terrifying power. This is a blood cloud. It's a demon powerhouse. Yunyao was very sensitive to the aura of the demons. She immediately determined that the red cloud was a blood cloud condensed by a demon powerhouse. Long Yunxiao immediately frowned, and his eyes were a little gloomy. He said in a cold tone, "Previously, the imperial court had heard that many demon powerhouses sneaked into Zhongzhou, disguised as humans, and moved frequently in the dark. I didn't expect the demons to be so arrogant and dare to come to me openly." As his voice fell, the blood cloud in the sky suddenly converged, and in the blink of an eye, it condensed into a human figure. It was a demon man wearing a blood-red robe, and he was as thin as a bamboo pole. His appearance was a little strange. His skin was pale and bloodless, like a cold corpse. He had a head of dark red waist-length hair, tied into 3 braids, and a few fangs in his flat mouth. His pair of dark red eyes contained a bloodthirsty cold light that made people tremble in fear. The blood-robed man looked down at Yun Yao and Long Yunxiao. His eyes were shining with excitement, and he sneered. "Kakik. I'm really lucky today to meet you here. Since you delivered yourself to me, I won't be polite. Today, both of you must stay." The blood-robed man's tone was very playful, like a cat playing with a mouse. Obviously, he regarded Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao as turtles in a jar. Yun Yao hated the demons to the core. Naturally, her eyes were filled with cold light, and she glared at the blood-robed man with murderous intent. Long Yunxiao could still maintain his calm. He stared coldly at the blood-robed man and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you? Do you know who I am?" "Ha ha ha." The blood-robed man raised his head and laughed. His voice was full of contempt and disdain. "Aren't you the emperor of the human clan? You are the noble emperor of the human clan. In front of me, you are not even a fart. Remember, I, Xue Qianjiang, will take your lives today." Xue Qianjiang shouted coldly. He immediately waved his hand and formed a mysterious seal, performing a secret technique of the demons. Demonic Dragon Soul Search. Xue Qianjiang shouted angrily. His palms released a blood light that covered the sky and earth. It condensed into 2 blood dragons that were 100 meters long, and they attacked fiercely. Swish! Swish! The 2 blood dragons with strong bodies and evil auras fell from the sky toward Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao with monstrous blood and murderous intent. The 2 of them did not expect Xue Qianjiang to attack so decisively. Their expressions changed, and they quickly defended themselves. Yun Yao took out the cold moon sword. She formed a sword technique with her left hand and waved the sword with her right hand. She used all her strength to slash out a white sword light. Moonlight Essence. The white sword light that was dozens of meters long was like a silver-white crescent moon. It carried an indomitable aura and slashed toward the demonic blood dragons fiercely. Long Yunxiao also put on the God of War armor. He held the 9-cloud sword in his right hand and used all his strength to slash out a huge golden sword light to block the attack of the demonic blood dragons. In the next moment, the 2 sword lights and the 2 demonic blood dragons collided with each other, and there was a muffled bang-bang sound. The loud sound echoed among the mountains. The dazzling golden light, silver light, and blood-red light lit up the dark sky for dozens of miles. The violent and raging energy rolled up a shocking hurricane and spread out in all directions. Immediately, the lush forest around the mountain peak suffered a calamity and was immediately crushed into fine powder. Chapter 7:13. The loud noise that reverberated in the sky gradually dissipated, and the heaven and earth returned to peace. The towering mountain that was thousands of feet high was now broken into pieces. The defensive array that Long Yunxiao had set up had been shattered by the 2 blood demon dragons. He and Yun Yao stood in the sky, facing Xue Qianjiang from thousands of meters away. Their faces were a little embarrassed, and they looked at Xue Qianjiang with vigilance and fear. Long Yunxiao was wearing the God of War armor, and his whole body was emitting a strong fighting spirit. He didn't seem to be injured, but his breath was a little disordered. Apparently, he was injured. He used his spiritual sense to tell Yun Yao, "Yao Yao, you have to be careful. This demon is at least at Sky Origin Stage 6. Yun Yao nodded and replied, "Yes, I'm afraid we are not his match. We shouldn't be entangled with him." Long Yun Shao agreed and said in a low voice, "Let's think of a way to get rid of him. Our top priority is to find the Heavenly Lady as soon as possible." The two of them had tested Xue Qianjiang's strength with one move, and they already had the intention to retreat. At this moment, Xue Qianjiang looked at them with a mocking look and sneered, "Don't struggle. You have no chance to escape from me." As he spoke, his figure flashed and turned into a blood light, rushing toward Yun Yao. Sky blood flowing light. A blood light that was hundreds of meters long, like a giant blade that could split heaven and earth, chopped toward Yun Yao's head. Xue Qianjiang obviously knew that Yun Yao was the weaker one among the two of them, so he attacked Yun Yao first. The dark red giant blade cut through the sky faster than lightning, and instantly chopped toward Yun Yao's head. Yun Yao's face changed, and she subconsciously wanted to retreat. However, the giant blade released a boundless invisible power, which had already sealed the space within thousands of meters. She felt like she was in a quagmire, and no matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't escape from the suppression of the invisible power. Her speed was as slow as a snail. She couldn't escape from the giant blade and was about to be hit. At this critical moment, she didn't hesitate to wave the cold moon sword and perform her unique sword art. River of Stars. The cold moon treasured sword emitted starlight that filled the sky. It was as if hundreds of thousands of bright stars had gathered to form a dazzling galaxy. Not only was the River of Stars dazzling and gorgeous, but it also contained a mysterious and vast power as it rushed toward the blood-red light. Boom! The dazzling galaxy collided with the blood-red heaven-splitting blade, resulting in an earth-shattering explosion. The Milky Way was instantly cut into pieces by the giant blood-red blade. It was fragmented and turned into billions of specks of starlight that scattered in the sky. Yun Yao was also sent flying back. She drew an arc in the sky and fell 1,000 meters away. While she was still in midair, she had already spat out a mouthful of blood, and her beautiful face became as white as snow. However, the blood-red blade hadn't dissipated yet, and its power hadn't decreased in the slightest. It continued to attack her. At this moment, Long Yunshao finally arrived. Shua! Seeing that Yun Yao was injured, he was extremely worried and angry. He unleashed all his potential, and his body turned into a golden ray of light as he rushed to Yun Yao's side with all his might. When the giant blood-red blade slashed down from the sky, he desperately rushed towards the giant blade, wanting to help Yun Yao block this fatal blow. Celestial Body Protection. Long Yunshao shouted angrily. The vital essence in his body surged out like a flood and condensed into a 5-colored wall in front of him. This wall of spiritual light was 10 meters in length and width. It seemed to be only half a foot thick, but it was harder than any steel wall. Its defensive power was extremely strong. In the next moment, the blood-red blade slashed the celestial body protection, resulting in a deafening explosion. Kaboom! The 5-colored celestial body protection was smashed into pieces by the blood-red blade. It exploded into millions of spiritual light fragments and splashed in all directions. Long Yunshao was also sent flying. He rolled and smashed into the mountains below. With a loud plop, a huge pit with a radius of 1,000 meters was smashed into the lush mountains. Several ravines were formed. Long Yunshao was lying at the bottom of the pit. He was buried by dust and gravel, and he looked quite miserable. The war god armor that he was wearing dimmed a lot, and its power was greatly weakened. On the left side of his chest, there was a dent that was as long as a chopstick. Although his injuries weren't serious, he struggled to climb out of the ruins and flapped his wings to fly high into the sky. But the blood-red blade had already dissipated and turned back into Xue Qianjiang's appearance. He was rushing towards Yun Yao at lightning speed. Sky-capturing demon palm. Xue Qianjiang rushed in front of Yun Yao in the blink of an eye. He waved his hand and formed a giant demon palm that grabbed towards Yun Yao. Yun Yao was injured just now. Her face was as pale as paper, and her breathing was chaotic and weak. Seeing the sky-capturing demon palm that covered the sky, she could only desperately wave the cold moon sword and use all her strength to block it. Moonlight Essence. She waved her sword and slashed out a moonlight sword light, but it was immediately crushed by the sky-capturing demon palm and turned into moonlight. In the next moment, the sky-capturing demon palm grabbed her head and held her firmly in the palm. No matter how she struggled, even if she used all her potential, she couldn't escape from the demon palm. Swoosh! The sky-capturing demon palm grabbed Yun Yao and flew back to Xue Qianjiang. Xue Qianjiang suddenly revealed a proud expression and sneered, "Ha ha ha. I have been watching you for a long time. Don't even think about escaping from me." Long Yunxiao saw Yun Yao being captured with his own eyes. He was so angry that his eyes almost popped out. He recklessly waved his sword and attacked Xue Qianjiang. "Xue Qianjiang! You ugly and lowly devil, release her for this monarch." Seeing Yun Yao seriously injured and trapped in the demon palm, he was so sad and anxious that his eyes turned red. If he could choose, he would rather be captured by the demon palm than see Yun Yao injured. However, Xue Qianjiang squinted at him and sneered contemptuously, "A mantis trying to stop a chariot. Don't overestimate yourself." As he spoke, he waved his sleeves and unleashed an earth-shattering blood light towards Long Yunxiao. That earth-shattering blood light immediately turned into a 100-meter-long blood light sword and fiercely stabbed towards Long Yunxiao. Long Yunxiao quickly waved the 9-cloud sword and dragon teeth blade and unleashed an earth-shattering sword light and saber light to meet the blood light sword. Bang bang! 2 deafening sounds burst out, and the saber light and sword light exploded at the same time. Long Yunxiao was once again sent flying by the blood light sword and smashed into the mountain below. The mountain that was already full of cracks was smashed into a huge deep pit, and dust and stone fragments splashed everywhere. Long Yunxiao's internal organs were seriously injured, and blood immediately flowed out from his mouth and nose. He lay at the bottom of the deep pit in a sorry state. Xue Qianjiang didn't attack again. He looked down at Long Yunxiao in the deep pit and shouted coldly, "Long Yunxiao, I will spare your life today. Go back and tell Ji Tianqing that if he wants to save Yun Yao, he has to come to the Dark Wind Cave in Black Ink Mountain to find me. I will only give him 1 day. If he doesn't come, don't blame me for being ruthless and killing his sweetheart." After that, Xue Qianjiang grabbed Yun Yao and turned into a blood cloud, flying away as fast as lightning. Chapter 7:14. Long Yunxiao watched as Yun Yao was taken away and the blood cloud flew away at lightning speed. He was filled with anger and fury. He chased after them recklessly to save Yun Yao. However, his speed was too slow. He couldn't catch up with the blood cloud that Xue Qianjiang had transformed into. In the end, he chased for dozens of miles. The blood cloud disappeared in the sky and completely disappeared. Long Yunxiao could only stop the chase. He turned around and left reluctantly, returning to Continent Center City. Although he knew the location of Black Ink Mountain, he couldn't chase after it alone. With his strength, he couldn't defeat Xue Qianjiang. Moreover, he was seriously injured. He could only return to the monarch mansion as soon as possible and tell this news to Ji Tianqing. The dark red blood cloud wrapped Yun Yao and flew across the sky as fast as lightning. 6 hours later, the blood cloud flew into an undulating mountain range and landed on a black mountain peak that was 4,000 meters tall. This black mountain peak was Black Ink Mountain, located 3,000 miles south of Continent Center City. Halfway up Black Ink Mountain, there was a narrow path that was close to the cliff. The path was only half a meter wide. On the inside, there was a straight and steep cliff. On the outside, there was a cliff shrouded in clouds and mist. At the end of the path, there was a dark cave entrance that was covered by a layer of hazy black mist. Swoosh! The blood cloud landed outside the cave entrance and changed back into Xue Qianzhang's appearance. He held Yunyao in his left hand while his right hand shot out streaks of blood light into the cave entrance. He was activating the defensive array of the cave entrance. Yunyao was held in his hand. Her whole body was covered by a layer of dark red blood light. Her true essence was sealed and suppressed. She was also unconscious. After a while, Xue Qianzhang activated the defensive array of the cave entrance. The layer of hazy black mist immediately dissipated. The tall stone door at the cave entrance opened automatically. Xue Qianzhang held Yunyao and walked in. Behind the stone door, there was a winding passage. It was a little dark and damp. The air was filled with a thick smell of blood and devil energy. Although there were many forks and branches in the passage, it was as complicated as a maze. But Xue Qianzhang was very familiar with this place. After a few twists and turns, he entered the belly of the Black Ink Mountain and arrived at a wide and tall cave. The cave was cold and gloomy, and the decorations were very simple. There were only a few stone stools and a stone table. In the middle of the cave stood an ancient pitch-black cauldron that was 10 meters tall. The pill cauldron was made of black meteoric iron. It had 3 legs, and its body was engraved with the secret characters and patterns of the demon race. It exuded an evil and ancient aura. On the ground below the cauldron, there was an array formation engraved on the rock. It was at least 30 meters in radius. This array formation continuously gathered devil chi and bloody light, gathering near the black pill cauldron and igniting a dark red, bloody flame. The blood-red flame brought a faint light, barely dispelling the darkness in the cave. When Xue Qianzhang carried Yunyao into the cave, a figure immediately walked out from the dark corner. This person was more than 3 meters tall, and his body was tall and sturdy like a bull. He wore blood-red leather armor, and his entire body emitted a bloodthirsty aura. He quickly walked in front of Xue Qianzhang, bowed, and said, "Welcome back to the cave, Demon King." Xue Qianzhang glanced at him and asked in a dignified voice, "Xueli, when I was not in the dark wind cave, was there any trouble?" Xueli quickly replied, "Demon King, there was no abnormality or trouble." Xue Qianzhang carried Yunyao into the cave, and asked as he walked, "What about that girl?" Xueli followed him respectfully, and said again, "She struggled in vain for half a day, and has no strength left. She has been quiet for a long time." "Okay." Xue Qianzhang nodded with satisfaction, and walked to a dark corner of the cave, and stopped in front of a stone door. This stone door was open from the rock wall, and behind the door was a secret room. Without Xue Qianzhang's command, Xueli took the initiative to open the stone door's array formation. With a creaking sound, the stone door opened by itself. Behind the door was a secret room about 10 meters in radius. The secret room was dark, and there was a simple gemstone lamp in the corner, emitting a dim silver light. On the wall facing the door, there were several thick cold iron chains, and a young girl wearing a long brocade dress and a jade phoenix crown was firmly tied to it. This girl's face was beautiful, and her temperament was noble. However, her clothes were a little messy, and the jade phoenix crown was a little crooked. She looked very embarrassed. Her limbs and waist were tied by several cold iron chains, and her vital chi was sealed, so she could not break free. When Xue Qianzhang and Xueli stepped into the secret room, she was leaning against the cold wall, and her hair was disheveled. She was silently resting and recovering her strength. Hearing the sound of the door opening, she slowly looked up at Xue Qianzhang, and glanced at Yunyao in Xue Qianzhang's hand. When she saw Yunyao's face, she immediately showed a shocked expression, and her eyes were full of doubts. "It's her. How did she get caught?" Xue Qianzhang carried Yunyao to the left side of the wall, and tied her up with cold iron chains. Then, he walked out of the secret room with Xueli. After the stone door was closed, the secret room returned to its quiet and dark state. After a long time, Yun Yao, who was in a coma, gradually woke up. She slowly opened her eyes, raised her head, and looked around with blurry eyes. When she saw that this was a secret room full of demon qi, she realized that she was caught in the cave residence of the demon king Xue Qianjiang. She looked down and saw the cold iron chains tied to her limbs, and subconsciously tried to use her power to struggle, only to find that her power had been sealed. At this moment, a clear female voice rang in her ears. Yun Yao, why were you also captured and brought here? Yun Yao subconsciously turned her head, and saw a young girl 10 steps away, who was also tied up by cold iron chains. When she saw the young girl's appearance, she suddenly frowned, and revealed a surprised look. And Suwen, why are you here? The two looked at each other, full of doubts, and did not understand what was going on. After a moment of silence, Yun Yao explained, this morning, I received a mysterious letter. There was only one sentence in the letter, if you want to save the heavenly concubine, go to Mount Yan in the southern suburbs. I took the letter to find the emperor, and after asking about the situation, I found out that you had left the monarch mansion, and the emperor also received a similar letter. The emperor was worried about your safety, so I left the monarch mansion with him, and rushed to Mount Yan to save you. We did not find you and the letter writer in Mount Yan, and after waiting for a few hours, we met the demon king Xue Qianjiang. The demon king Xue Qianjiang is very powerful, and he seriously injured me and the emperor, so he caught me and brought me here. Yun Yao explained everything that had happened, then asked in Suwen, how did you get caught and brought here? What exactly happened before that? Brothers, let the outbreak begin. Today's update. Chapter 7:15. After listening to Yun Yao's explanation, An Suwen finally understood what had happened. Although she still hated Yun Yao in her heart. But now, both of them were in prison and their fates were unknown. She temporarily suppressed her hatred and explained in a low voice, that day, I left the Cloud Palace in a fit of anger and left the monarch mansion. Not long after I left the Forest of Divine Monuments, before I could decide where to go, I was knocked unconscious by a mysterious masked expert. When I woke up, I discovered that I was in a dark cave. My true essence was sealed and I was imprisoned in the cave. And I also saw that the masked expert was fighting with 2 experts from the demon clan. Not long after they fought, the masked expert was no match for the 2 experts from the demon clan and escaped with injuries. I fell into the hands of the 2 experts from the demon clan. Oh right, one of the 2 experts from the demon clan was the demon king Xue Qianjiang that you mentioned. The other expert from the demon clan seemed to be Xue Qianjiang's subordinate. After I fell into their hands, I heard them talking in the demon clan's language for a while, as if they were discussing something. After they finished discussing, Xue Qianjiang left alone and I don't know where he went. Xue Qianjiang's subordinate captured me and brought me here. Hearing this, Yun Yao suddenly came to a realization and understood the whole story. She said to An Suwen, the cave you were imprisoned in should be in the Swallow Return Mountain. The person who sent the letter to me and the Son of Heaven should be the mysterious expert who knocked you unconscious. No wonder when we rushed to the Swallow Return Mountain, we couldn't find you and the person who wrote the letter. We only saw traces of fighting in the mountain. So that's why. Yun Yao thought for a while and asked An Suwen, Heavenly Concubine, do you know the identity of the mysterious expert who knocked you unconscious? An Suwen shook her head. Yun Yao asked again, is the mysterious expert from the human clan or the demon clan? An Suwen seriously thought for a while and said with certainty, that mysterious expert should be from the human clan and not the demon clan. He didn't have the characteristics of the demon clan and the martial skill he used was also the power of true essence. Furthermore, this person is no stranger to the royal residence. Yun Yao frowned and fell into contemplation. She muttered, that mysterious expert is a human. He isn't a stranger to the king mansion. Why does his letter have the aura of an alien race? Thinking of this, a thought suddenly flashed through her mind, and she immediately guessed a person. Could it be, that mysterious expert is Murong Lingfeng? Yun Yao knew clearly that as one of the 3 great thousand ancient aristocratic families, the Murong family had a special inherited secret technique that allowed them to create and imitate the auras of other clans. It was precisely because of this that the Murong family's elites could disguise themselves and sneak into the various clans to gather information and obtain all sorts of confidential information. The main business of the Murong family is neither refining pills nor refining tools. Instead, it is collecting confidential information and selling all kinds of information. For nearly 1,000 years, the Murong family had used secret techniques and various methods to create an information network that covered the Central Plains and the Four Corners continent. As long as it was a major event that happened in the profound Sky continent, almost nothing could escape the eyes and ears of the Murong family. The Murong family had spies all over the world. They could even disguise themselves as other clans and sneak into other clans. Even in the northern desert, the bitterest place in the continent, the Murong family had spies and messengers that could spy on the movements of the demon race. Many times, when the imperial court wanted to gather confidential information, they had to borrow the power of the Murong family. It was precisely because of this that the Murong family was heavily relied on by the imperial court and could stand tall for 1,000 years without declining. Yun Yao's expression was solemn as she silently pondered, if the mysterious expert that knocked Suan unconscious is really Murong Lingfeng, then it is not hard to understand. The Murong family wanted to use Suan to deal with me and the emperor, to completely disrupt the situation. Therefore, they also sent me a letter. However, Murong Lingfeng did not expect that halfway through the plan, he would encounter the demon king Xue Qianjiang. With Yun Yao's intelligence, she quickly guessed the cause. However, this was only her deduction. Before the truth was revealed, she could not be completely sure. Soon, Yun Yao suppressed the many thoughts in her mind. She looked at Suan and calmly said, "You don't have to worry. Very soon, someone will come to save us." Suan indifferently glanced at her and coldly snorted, "Humph." This consort was indeed a bit worried that the cruel and ruthless devil would most likely kill this consort. "I did not expect you to be captured. Since you are with me, what is there for me to worry about? After all, the emperor would definitely not bear to let you lose a single strand of hair. No matter what, he will come to save you." Suan's tone was filled with jealousy and ridicule. Her eyes were also filled with enmity and hatred. Yun Yao calmly glanced at her. She could see that she was still holding a grudge and was still brooding over the previous matter. She solemnly said, "I, Yun Yao, only love Ji Tianqing. In this life, I will not marry anyone else but him. I will definitely hold hands with him until the end of time. As for Long Yunshao, his thoughts and actions have nothing to do with me. I can't control him, and I can't influence his thoughts and decisions." Speaking up to this point, she stared at Suan and calmly said, "Suan, you are not a commoner in the mortal world. Why do you have to be a narrow-minded jealous woman? Instead of wasting your time and energy on jealousy, why don't you spend more time thinking about how to capture Long Yunzhao's heart? What should you do to secure your position as the heavenly consort?" When Suan heard the words narrow-minded and jealous woman, she instinctively frowned. A trace of anger flashed through her eyes. However, Yun Yao's words were reasonable. There was not a single bit of falsehood in them. She stared blankly for a moment. The anger on her face and eyes gradually dissipated. She silently lowered her head. She also understood that Yun Yao was right. If she wanted to win the emperor's favor, she had to follow the emperor's wishes. She clearly knew that the emperor was infatuated with Yun Yao, but she never thought about how to capture the emperor's heart. Instead, she went against Yun Yao and schemed and competed with her. She was simply asking for trouble. It would only make the emperor more and more disgusted with her. Suan's eyes shone brightly. She thought to herself, as the heavenly consort, I should be both talented and virtuous. I should have the style of a motherly model of the world. Only then can I obtain the emperor's and imperial court's recognition. I should be more magnanimous in order to resolve the awkward situation in front of me. As long as Yun Yao doesn't want to marry the emperor and doesn't want to compete for the position of the heavenly consort, the emperor will never be able to obtain her. I will always be the heavenly consort. Time can change everything. Although the emperor can't let go of Yun Yao for now, as long as I stay by the emperor's side, one day I will be able to change his mind and let him see my infatuation. Thinking up to here, and Suwen's gaze became much calmer and gentler. The haze that shrouded her heart also gradually dissipated. She looked at Yun Yao with a sincere gaze and said in a serious tone, "Yun Yao, I did misunderstand you before. My actions were a bit overboard." Chapter 7:16. At the same time, in the monarch mansion. A dazzling golden light streaked across the sky, flying towards the peak of the Tianqing mountain range. Swoosh! The golden light landed outside the gate of the Tianqing palace, revealing a handsome and tall figure. This handsome young man in a golden robe was the son of heaven, Long Yunxiao. His face was pale and bloodless, and his true qi aura was somewhat chaotic and weak. It was obvious that his injuries were not light. However, he did not care about his injuries at all. After landing, he hurriedly walked towards the gate. "Where's Ji Tianqing? I have something to talk to him about." The guard at the gate recognized him and did not stop him. He quickly opened the gate to welcome him. "Your Majesty, my master is cultivating in seclusion in the secret room." Long Yunxiao stepped over the gate and quickly walked towards the Tianqing palace. He ordered with a dignified expression, "Quickly take me to the secret room." The guard understood the urgency of the matter and did not dare to ask any more questions. He quickly led him to Ji Tianqing's residence. After 100 breaths of time, the two entered the palace where Ji Tianqing lived and came to the door of the secret room. Long Yunxiao personally knocked on the door. He waved his hand and sent a ray of true qi into the array of the secret room's stone door. Suddenly, the stone door lit up with a dazzling brilliance and emitted a strong true qi fluctuation. The secret room was dimly lit, and there were strands of colorful spiritual energy floating in the air. Ji Tianqing was sitting cross-legged in the heavenly spiritual array, using the 30 times gravity to temper his body. He was immediately alarmed. Very quickly, he stopped his hands and stopped his cultivation. He ended his meditation and opened his eyes. At this time, Long Yunxiao's voice came from outside the secret room. "Ji Tianqing, I have something to talk to you about. Quickly come out and meet me." Hearing Long Yunxiao's words, Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows, and a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. "Long Yunxiao actually came to find me and even knocked on my door to interrupt my cultivation. What happened? Why is it so urgent?" These thoughts flashed through his mind. He quickly waved his hand to open the array and opened the door of the secret room. Along with a creaking sound, the large and heavy stone door slowly rose. Ji Tianqing quickly stepped through the door and walked out of the secret room. When he saw Long Yunxiao, he immediately knew that Long Yunxiao was injured. He looked anxious and worried. He quickly asked, "Tianzi, what happened?" Long Yunxiao didn't waste any time and pulled him out. "Yao Yao was captured by the devil king Xue Qianjiang. I was also injured by Xue Qianjiang. Quickly come with me to save her. As for what happened, I'll tell you in detail later." "What? Yao Yao was captured by the demon king Xue Qianjiang." When Ji Tianqing heard that something had happened to Yun Yao, he immediately frowned. His eyes were filled with worry, and his heart was in his throat. He hurriedly followed Long Yunxiao out of Tianqing Palace and flew towards the exit of the monarch residence as fast as lightning. On the way, Long Yunxiao used the soul sense sound transmission to tell the cause of the matter. After Ji Tianqing heard it, his expression became a little complicated. He murmured to himself, I didn't expect that such a thing would happen in just a few days of secluded cultivation. The heavenly concubine disappeared and was captured by a mysterious expert. Yao Yao was also captured by Xue Qianjiang and was imprisoned. Regardless of the heavenly concubine, I have to save Yao Yao no matter what. I can't let anything happen to her. Very quickly, 6 hours passed. Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao flew for 3,000 miles and finally arrived at the Black Ink Mountain in the mountains. The two stood in the sky above the Black Ink Mountain, overlooking the dark brown mountain peak and carefully observing it. Suddenly, a blood cloud appeared in the sky above the mountain peak, which was more than 10,000 feet high. It lit up with a dark red blood light. Swish! The blood cloud gushed out from the Black Ink Mountain and flew to the sky in the blink of an eye. It turned into a figure that was more than 3 meters tall. This figure was a demon clan man wearing a blood-red robe. His skin was as pale as a corpse. He had a flat mouth, revealing a few sharp fangs. Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao had seen him before. They immediately recognized him. This person was the demon king Xue Qianjiang. Xue Qianjiang stood high in the sky. He looked at Ji Tianqing with his blood-red eyes and sneered. Ji Tianqing, we meet again. Last time, you were lucky to escape. This time, you sent yourself to me. Ha ha ha. Xue Qianjiang's tone was full of complacency. He looked at Ji Tianqing with eyes that were full of bloodthirst and murderous intent. Ji Tianqing stared at him coldly and shouted angrily, Xue Qianjiang. If you have any tricks, come at me. If you dare to let Yunyao lose a single strand of hair, I will definitely cut you into pieces. Ha ha ha. Xue Qianjiang laughed more and more wildly. He hooked his finger at him and said contemptuously, want to save your sweetheart? Let's see if you have the ability. I will be in the dark wind cave, waiting for you to die. After saying that, his figure flashed and turned into a dark red blood cloud. He quickly drilled back into the Black Ink Mountain and disappeared. Ji Tianqing quickly chased after him and landed on the Black Ink Mountain with Long Yunxiao. After landing on the summit of the mountain, he looked around a few times and discovered that the entire Black Ink Mountain was enveloped by a large defensive array. It was obviously unrealistic to use the earth escape technique to drill into the mountain. He released his spiritual sense to explore a few hundred meters. Soon, he found that there was a winding path halfway up the mountain. At the end of the winding path, there was a dark and mysterious cave entrance. Found it. That should be Xue Qianjiang's dark wind cave. Ji Tianqing quickly flew to the mountainside with Long Yunxiao and landed on the path outside the dark wind cave. He saw that the dark cave entrance was covered by a thick layer of blood light. He couldn't see the situation inside the cave. The blood light that sealed the cave entrance formed a light wall with a radius of 10 meters. It constantly flickered with blood-red flames and emitted a strong evil aura. Ji Tianqing only took a few glances to determine that the entrance of the dark wind cave was also arranged with a powerful demonic array. It combined defense and counterattack into one. Its power was extraordinary. He turned to look at Long Yunxiao and said with a dignified face, Son of Heaven, I have fought with Xue Qianjiang. This demon king's strength is not bad. He also has a magic weapon in his hand. He is very difficult to deal with. Not only is the Black Ink Mountain protected by an array, but the cave entrance is also arranged with a mysterious demonic array. Even with my attainments in array, I can't solve it in a short time. Once we enter the dark wind cave, I am afraid it will be difficult to get out smoothly. Now that you are injured, it is inconvenient for you to fight a bloody battle. It is better to wait outside the cave. Long Yunxiao looked at the thick blood light at the cave entrance and gently shook his head. Xue Qianjiang's strength is really strong. How can I let you fight with him alone? If we join hands, won't the chance of success be greater? Ji Tianqing slightly frowned and thought in his heart, Son of Heaven is willing to risk his life to save Yao Yao. It seems that he hasn't given up on Yao Yao. However, the urgent matter was to save Yun Yao. He couldn't care so much. Chapter 7:17. Ji Tianqing knew that Xue Qianjiang had set up this trap to deal with him. However, Yun Yao was imprisoned in the dark wind cave. He had to save her no matter what. In order to save Yun Yao as soon as possible, he didn't dare to waste any time. He quickly used his array to break the demon Dao array at the entrance of the dark wind cave. Long Yun Shao was also worried and anxious. He helped him break the array. After an hour, the two of them finally cracked the Devil Dao Grand Array at the entrance of the cave after exhausting their mental and physical strength. A large crack immediately appeared on the wall of light formed by the dark red light. Ji Tianqing and Long Yun Shao went through the crack without hesitation and entered the dark wind cave. Swoosh! The two of them went through the blood light wall and entered the dark tunnel. They ran down the winding tunnel and released their spiritual senses to check the surroundings. They were alert at all times. After 15 minutes, the two of them finally reached the end of the tunnel and entered a tall and wide cave. The cave was located in the belly of the mountain and was 1,000 meters underground. The ground was a little damp. The air was filled with a thick smell of blood. There were also strands of dark red light floating in the air. There were dozens of dark red blood crystals on the ceiling of the cave. They were emitting a dim red light and brought a weak light to the cave. With the help of the weak red light, Ji Tianqing saw that there was an ancient black cauldron in the middle of the cave. The three-legged cauldron was 10 meters tall. The surface of the cauldron was engraved with mysterious demon clan characters and patterns. It was emitting a dark red light and a mysterious and evil aura. There was a demon Dao array under the cauldron. It was constantly gathering blood qi and blood light. It turned into a burning blood flame and poured into the cauldron. On the left side of the ancient black cauldron, there was a tall and thin figure. It was Xue Qianjiang, who was wearing a blood-red robe. Xue Qianjiang's dark red eyes stared at Ji Tianqing and Long Yun Shao. He grinned and sneered contemptuously, "You two idiots really came. The reason why the human race is so weak and vulnerable is because you are bound by emotions and desires. Even if you know that this king has set up traps and ambushes here, in order to save your beloved woman, you still have to obediently send yourselves to death. Hee, you humans are really stupid and pitiful. But we demons are different. What this king is most disgusted by is the 7 emotions and 6 desires. In front of powerful martial strength and a prosperous country, any beauty is insignificant." Xue Qianjiang's entire body was emitting an overbearing and valiant aura, appearing imposing and dignified. He was extremely proud and confident. He looked at Ji Tianqing and Long Yun Shao like a cat playing with a mouse. Ji Tianqing stared coldly at Xue Qianjiang and shouted coldly, "Xue Qianjiang! Cut the crap and hand over Yun Yao immediately. I can still spare your life." Xue Qianjiang was stunned for a moment, then he raised his head and laughed, "Ha ha ha. Ji Tianqing. You are about to die and yet you are still so arrogant. What a pitiful worm." After laughing, he waved his hand and shot out a dark red blood light towards the rock wall at the corner of the cave. Suddenly, a dark red brilliance lit up in that dark corner, revealing a layer of invisibility array formation. Swoosh! 2 stone pillars as thick as a water bucket appeared on the ground. Cold iron chains as thick as an arm wrapped around each of the stone pillars, binding a peerless beauty. Ji Tianqing looked carefully and recognized the woman in a white dress tied to the stone pillar on the left. She was Yun Yao. The woman tied to the stone pillar on the right was wearing a long brocade dress and a jade phoenix golden crown. She was heavenly concubine Nsuwen. Yun Yao and Nsuwen were both unconscious. Their hair was loose and covered half of their cheeks. Both of them were shrouded in a black fog of demonic energy. Obviously, the demonic energy had invaded their bodies and their life force had become extremely weak. They could die at any time. When Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao saw Ensuan, they were stunned for a moment and revealed a puzzled expression. Why is Ensuan here? She was also captured by Xue Qianjiang. What's going on? When they saw the situation of Yun Yao and Ensuan, they immediately frowned and revealed a worried expression. Especially Yun Yao's situation. Not only was she severely injured, but the demonic energy surrounding her body was also stronger. There was also a mysterious and cold energy in her body that was constantly devouring her life force. Xue Qianjiang saw Ji Tianqing's worried and furious expression and sneered proudly. Ji Tianqing, I have already planted the blood-dissipating curse on Yun Yao. This blood-dissipating curse is the supreme secret technique of our Bloodwing tribe. Only the person who cast the curse can remove it personally. No elixir can save her. 3 days later, if I don't remove the blood-dissipating curse on Yun Yao, her blood essence will melt, and she will completely lose her mind and her humanity. At that time, she will become a female devil who doesn't recognize her own family and kills anyone she sees. She only knows how to kill crazily. I really want to see how you will feel when she personally stabs a sword into your heart. Ha ha ha. Hearing Xue Qianjiang's words, Ji Tianqing was instantly enraged and his eyes were surging with cold killing intent. Xue Qianjiang. You despicable and vicious devil, you will die a horrible death. Xue Qianjiang saw his angry and crazy appearance and laughed proudly. Ha ha ha. Seeing your beloved woman's life hanging by a thread and about to become a female devil, you must be very angry and heartbroken, right? Good. Since you are so devoted to her, I will give you a chance to prove how devoted you are to her. Xue Qianjiang pointed at the black pill cauldron beside him and said to Ji Tianqing with a smile, this is our Bloodwing tribe's blood-refining king cauldron. It can refine the blood essence of 10,000 spirits and extract the bloodline of living beings. Ji Tianqing, if you really love Yun Yao, then obediently jump into the blood-refining king cauldron and extract the Kenshin bloodline. As long as you give me the Kenshin bloodline, I will immediately release Yun Yao and remove the blood-dissipating curse on her. Using the Kenshin bloodline in exchange for the life of your beloved woman, this is worth it. You won't reject it, right? If not, what's the difference between you and our demon clan? Ji Tianqing was silent and didn't speak, as if he was considering this matter. Long Yunxiao suddenly became anxious and hurriedly reminded, Ji Tianqing. Calm down, don't be fooled. The demon clan is naturally cunning and cruel. They are the most untrustworthy and will do anything to achieve their goals. Even if you hand over the Kenshin bloodline, Xue Qianjiang will still kill you and Yao Yao. Actually, even without Long Yunxiao's reminder, how could Ji Tianqing not understand this logic? He knew better than anyone that as long as he still had the Kenshin bloodline, Xue Qianjiang wouldn't dare to kill him. Once he handed over the Kenshin bloodline, he would become a dispensable person. Chapter 718. Ji Tianqing didn't want to waste any more time when he saw Yun Yao's miserable look of being entangled by the demon qi. He didn't hesitate at all. His whole body was bursting with fighting spirit. A light flashed in his palm and he took out the black dragon sword. Swoosh! He held the black dragon sword and pointed it at Xue Qianjiang, who was 100 steps away. He shouted with murderous intent, Xue Qianjiang, stop talking nonsense. You want to take my Kenshin bloodline? You have to beat me first. I didn't kill you last time, but I will take your life today. As soon as he finished speaking, Ji Tianqing activated his majestic true essence and used his powerful sword art to attack Xue Qianjiang with an indomitable will. Red Dragon Flash. The cave was only about 200 meters wide. It wasn't wide enough. Ji Tianqing activated his violent flame power and condensed a 10-meter-long flame sword light. It was like a dragon piercing towards Xue Qianjiang. Swoosh! The dark red flame light illuminated the cave. It instantly crossed the distance of 100 steps and arrived in front of Xue Qianjiang. Xue Qianjiang was still overbearing and confident. He didn't put the sword light in his eyes. Ha ha ha. Little bastard, since you insist on seeking death, I will send you and Yunyao to heaven together. Xue Qianjiang laughed contemptuously. He waved his sleeves and released a ball of dark red blood light. It turned into a blood whirlpool and rolled towards Ji Tianqing. That huge blood whirlpool swallowed the dragon-like flame sword light. Not a bit of fire was leaked out. Moreover, the blood whirlpool didn't reduce its power after swallowing the flame sword light. It even wanted to engulf Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing smelled the disgusting smell of blood. There was a terrifying swallowing power that engulfed his body and wanted to pull him into the whirlpool. At the critical moment, he immediately retreated and swung his sword again to release a golden sword light. Golden Emperor Slash. Ji Tianqing unleashed all of his power, condensing it into a 50-meter-long golden sword, slashing towards the blood vortex and Xue Qianjiang. The dazzling golden light illuminated the entire cave. Everything within a 200-meter radius could be seen clearly. The giant golden sword slashed through the blood-red vortex with unstoppable power. With a pop sound, the blood whirlpool burst like a bubble. It turned into countless blood lights and splashed in all directions. The Golden Emperor hit Xue Qianjiang again and sent him flying back to the cave wall. A huge crater appeared on the sturdy, dark brown rock wall, and spiderweb-like cracks appeared all around it. The 50-meter-long golden sword fell to the ground with a loud rumble. Boom! A loud and earth-shattering sound burst out, and reverberated intensely in the cave. 100-meter-long gully appeared on the ground, and countless cracks appeared all around it. The entire cave began to shake violently, and countless pieces of gravel and dust fell from the top of the cave. At the same time, Long Yunxiao donned the war god armor and wielded the nine-cloud sword. He waved the sword and pounced towards Xue Qianjiang, wanting to take advantage of the situation to attack. However, the stone door of a secret room on the left side of the cave suddenly opened. A tall and sturdy figure that looked like a bull rushed out as fast as lightning, carrying two large black iron axes. Long Yunxiao, your opponent is me. This person was Xueli. He roared loudly and waved his thick arms. Holding the two axes, he hacked at Long Yunxiao. The two large iron axes weighed at least a few thousand kilograms. But in Xueli's hands, they were as light as paper. He waved the axes around, splashing out fierce and violent blood lights. Long Yunxiao's momentum was blocked. His figure was suddenly drowned by the axes. He was like a lonely boat in a stormy sea, swaying unsteadily and could capsize at any time. He had to wield the nine-cloud sword and the dragon-teeth dagger to fight back with all his might. Xueli's strength had reached the second level of Sky Origin stage. He was extremely strong and his attacks were extremely violent. Long Yunxiao was seriously injured, so his fighting strength was greatly reduced. Naturally, he was not Xueli's opponent. After a few moves, Long Yunxiao was shaken and flew out. He hit the ground 20 meters away, creating a big hole in the rocky ground. Xueli carried the two iron axes. Like a giant beast, he stepped on the ground and rushed toward Long Yunxiao. Wherever he walked, he left a series of deep pits in the ground. Ha ha ha. The human clan son of heaven is just so. Today, I will beat you. Xueli laughed wildly. He waved the axes again and attacked Long Yunxiao fiercely. Long Yunxiao tried his best to resist, but he was still beaten back. He kept retreating toward the exit of the Dark Wind Cave. As the two of them fought, a rumbling sound rang out. Dust and gravel flew everywhere, and their strength continued to erupt. A violent hurricane swept up in the cave, causing the cave to be in chaos. On the other side, Ji Tianqing and Xue Qianjiang were also fighting fiercely. The two of them were stronger, so the power of their martial skills was more violent and frightening. As the two of them fought fiercely, loud rumbling noises kept bursting out, shaking the entire cave. The violent hurricane mixed with the bloody light and the brilliance of true yuan formed circle after circle of shockwaves that constantly spread out in all directions. The cave was blown apart. The roof of the cave kept collapsing, and countless boulders and dust fell. Ji Tianqing and Xue Qianjiang had only exchanged a dozen moves, and half of the cave had already collapsed. A huge hole appeared in the defensive formation protecting the cave on the spot. The cave was on the verge of collapse, and would soon collapse. Yun Yao and Ensuan, on the other hand, were still tied to the stone pillars. Large millstone stones and dust continued to fall around them. Their lives were in danger at any time. The situation was getting more and more critical. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing quietly hid the black dragon's sword in the ruins. He quickly passed through the gap in the formation, and escaped out of the dark wind cave. Xue Qianjiang was already in a killing frenzy. He couldn't wait to tear Ji Tianqing into pieces and extract his Kenshin bloodline. Seeing Ji Tianqing escape out of the dark wind cave, he chased after him without hesitation. After a while, Ji Tianqing, Xue Qianjiang, Long Yunxiao, and Xueli all left the dark wind cave. Only Yun Yao and Ensuan were left in the dark wind cave, and the black dragon's sword hidden in the ruins. At this time, the black dragon sword came out of the ruins, flew to Yun Yao's side, and slashed at the cold iron chains with all its might. Dang dang dang, the sound of metal hitting metal sounded. The cold iron chains wrapped around Yun Yao's body were immediately cut off by the black dragon sword. Yun Yao broke free from the chains, and her body softly fell to the ground. The black dragon sword hesitated for a moment, and then flew to Ensuan's side. Dang dang dang, it cut off the cold iron chains that bound her. Ensuan was also saved. She fell unconscious on the ground. The black dragon sword circled in the air, and with a swoosh, it turned into a black dragon that was 10 meters long. It looked at the unconscious Yun Yao and Ensuan. It shot out a gentle icy blue brilliance, enveloping Yun Yao and Ensuan, and placed them on its back. Chapter 719. Outside the dark wind cave, in the sky thousands of feet above the ground. Ji Tianqing and Xue Qianjiang were desperately using their ultimate killing moves, fighting with all their might. Demonic Dragon Soul Search. Xue Qianjiang stepped high in the sky, and shouted with a murderous aura. He waved his sleeves, and his palms shot out a bloody light that covered the sky, condensing into two ferocious blood-red demonic dragons that were hundreds of meters long. Ong! Two ferocious blood-red demonic dragons with violent and bloodthirsty auras, as fast as the aurora, pierced through the sky, carrying an invincible and terrifying power, and fiercely attacked Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing was immediately shrouded by the two demonic dragons' huge shadows, falling into the bloody light that filled the sky, and was in imminent danger. At the critical moment, he recklessly used all his strength, and his whole body burst out with a dazzling golden light, igniting a golden flame that soared into the sky. White Tiger Sacred Sword. Following his angry shout, his whole body disappeared, and merged with the monstrous golden flame, condensing into a huge golden sword that was hundreds of meters long. This huge sword was condensed, and it emitted an incomparably sharp aura, as if it had the power to split the sky and earth. The huge sword lit up with a golden light, condensing into a mountain-like white tiger shadow. It stretched out its claws and fangs, and fearlessly pounced on the two blood-red demonic dragons. A white tiger fighting two demonic dragons, and the sky and earth changed color. The sky within a radius of 10 miles was covered by the golden flame and the bloody light, and became chaotic. Bang! Bang! In the deafening loud noise, the white tiger sacred sword and the two demonic dragons collided, and the golden and bloody flames that covered the sky and earth burst out. The two blood-red demonic dragons and the white tiger sacred sword collapsed and exploded at the same time, turning into hundreds of millions of fingernail-sized fragments that scattered in the sky like raindrops. The violent and devastating shockwave burst out, and swept across a radius of 10 miles. The sky was shaken, and the few mountains nearby were also shaken by the shockwave. Ravines were split open, and countless rocks and soil collapsed. In the turbid sky, Ji Tianqing's figure appeared. His bun was messy, and his hair was disheveled, and he looked a little embarrassed. He stood high up in the sky, his face pale, breathing heavily, but his eyes were staring at Xue Qianjiang, who was 1,000 meters away. Xue Qianjiang is at least at the 7th level of the sky origin stage. Besides, he has cultivated the secret skill of the blood demon sect. If I don't use my trump card, I really can't do anything to him. This thought flashed through Ji Tianqing's mind, and his eyes surged with cold killing intent. At the same time, Xue Qianjiang was also stunned for a moment. His eyes flashed with astonishment. Little bastard, your strength has improved. You actually managed to block this king's killing move. Humph, if you try this move again, I'll see if you die. Xue Qianjiang's murderous aura soared as he let out a low growl. His entire body surged with a bloody light that soared into the sky, burning with a bloody flame. Sky blood flowing light. Xue Qianjiang's body also started to burn, turning into a dense blood light that soared into the sky. Shwa! The dark red blood light that covered the sky condensed into a bloody giant blade that was 100 meters long. It was like an evil god's war sword that could split the heaven and earth. It fell from the sky and slashed towards Ji Tianqing. Suddenly, the sky within a radius of 10 miles was sealed by an invisible force, and the air was frozen on the spot. Ji Tianqing wanted to retreat to avoid it, but it was like he was stuck in a quagmire. He struggled with all his might, but he couldn't move. His speed was as slow as a snail. Helplessly, he could only raise his left arm and activate the power of the red flame true fire. Burning sky palm. Ji Tianqing roared and waved his left palm to hit out a giant flaming palm that covered the sky, hitting the bloody light blade head-on. With a muffled sound, the giant flaming palm and the sky-splitting blade collided with a loud bang, exploding out a strong wind and dazzling brilliance that swept across the heaven and earth. The dark red blood light and flames that covered the sky suddenly spread over a radius of 20 miles, turning the entire area into a boundless sea of fire and blood. The bloody light blade was smashed into pieces on the spot, bursting into 108,000 pieces, splashing in all directions. Xue Qianjiang's figure appeared. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew back, tumbling in the sky for more than 1,000 meters before stabilizing his body with great difficulty. At the same time, the burning sky palm hit the black ink mountain below, smashing the mountain into pieces on the spot, and collapsed with a rumbling sound. Xue Qianjiang stood in the sky in a sorry state, looking at the black ink mountain that was smashed into pieces and turned into ruins. He was so angry that his whole body emitted blood fire. Damn little bastard! You dare to destroy my dark wind cave. If I don't crush your bones and scatter your ashes today, how can I get rid of the hatred in my heart? Little bastard, go to hell. Xue Qianjiang roared like a bell, completely furious and lost his mind. Blood fire gushed out from his whole body, bursting out an overbearing aura that suppressed the heaven and earth, as well as a terrifying murderous aura that could slaughter the common people. At this moment, his body expanded more than 10 times, and he actually turned into a blood-robed giant that was nearly 100 meters tall. He was like an ancient demon god, with an extremely powerful aura. He took out an ancient and broken scroll from his spatial ring, poured his life's power into the scroll, and slowly opened it. This ancient and broken scroll was his family heirloom, the relic of the Blood Emperor, the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map. Although Ji Tianqing was intercepted by Xue Qianjiang last time, he had used the Seal of Mountains and Rivers to break open the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map. This Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map had a gap that had not been repaired until now, and its power was only about 40%. But after all, this was a soul-level treasure. Even if there were gaps and loopholes, its power was still terrifying. Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map. Following Shui Qianzhang's low shout, the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map immediately released a blood light that covered the sky and the earth, filling a radius of 20 miles. Suddenly, the dark red blood light dyed half of the sky, and the sky within a radius of 20 miles turned into a boundless sea of blood. Ji Tianqing was submerged in the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map. He could only see the endless blood light around him, and he could not see anything outside. The mountains and forests below, as well as the ruins, were all submerged in the sea of blood. Shui Qianzhang stood above the sea of blood and kept waving his palms, manipulating the power of the boundless sea of blood to devour Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing struggled in the sea of blood, trying his best to resist the bombardment and suppression of the shocking blood waves. There were also endless corpses and skeletons that condensed into a huge monster that was crazily besieging him. He stared sharply at Shui Qianzhang and sneered, "Shui Qianzhang, you used this Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map before, but you still could not stop me. Today, if you use this technique again, it will be even more impossible to trap me." As he spoke, Ji Tianqing took out the Domain Master's golden seal from the space ring. When he was intercepted by Duanmu Huang, he used the Seal of Mountains and Rivers to block 3 of Duanmu Huang's killing moves. Although the 3 seals that the emperor had placed on the Seal of Mountains and Rivers were gone, the power of this treasure was not as strong as before. But it still had an extremely strong defensive power. World Annihilation Dragon Spear. Ji Tianqing held the Seal of Mountains and Rivers with both hands and fully activated the power of the Seal of Mountains and Rivers, releasing a golden spear light that was more than 300 meters long. Chapter 720. Back then, Ji Tianqing had witnessed the battle between Yun Zhongqi and Duanmu Huang with his own eyes. He had witnessed the snow-white dragon spear, by Longyin's elegance. He was inspired and created the World Annihilation Dragon Spear. The World Annihilation Dragon Spear's attack style and power were much stronger than the Mountain River Dragon Shadow. In an instant, the 300-meter-long dragon spear radiance arrived in front of Shui Qianzhang. The World Annihilation Dragon Spear was about to hit Shui Qianzhang and turn him into dust. However, there was a sea of blood within a radius of 20 miles. This was the territory created by Shui Qianzhang using the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map. In the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map, he was the ruler of this territory. At the critical moment, he could use the power of the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map to teleport. Swoosh! Shui Qianzhang's figure flashed and teleported 10 miles away, dodging the attack of the World Annihilation Dragon Spear. The World Annihilation Dragon Spear missed and passed through the Sea of Blood. It flew for thousands of meters and hit the edge of the Sea of Blood. Boom! In the deafening sound, the blood light barrier at the edge of the Sea of Blood was smashed into pieces and a huge hole appeared. The World Annihilation Dragon Spear had exhausted its power and gradually collapsed. The hole that was a few hundred meters wide expanded rapidly, causing the Sea of Blood to collapse and turn into a sea of blood. Swoosh! The blood light within a radius of 20 miles suddenly converged. In just a few breaths, it shrank back into an old and broken scroll and flew back into Shui Qianzhang's hands. The Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map disappeared and the world returned to normal. Shui Qianzhang stood high in the sky, holding the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map with both hands and looking down at the scroll. When he saw a long and narrow crack in the scroll, he was heartbroken and his face twitched. The Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map was old and broken and its power was not even half of its peak. He had used this treasure twice to deal with Ji Tianqing, but it was defeated twice. This caused the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map to be even more broken and its power to drop to the extreme. At this point, the power of the Mountain of Corpses and Blood Seas diagram had almost completely dissipated. It could only be considered a heaven origin level magic item. A powerful Dharma treasure that was famous in the northern desert had been reduced to an ordinary Dharma treasure. How ironic and ridiculous was this? If Xue Qianjiang wanted to restore the corpse mountain blood sea diagram, he would need at least 100 years. The materials consumed were enough to refine a brand new artifact. Such a heavy loss made Xue Qianjiang furious. His whole body ignited with a blood-red murderous aura that soared to the sky. Ah! Ji Tianqing, you bastard! Reptile! This king will tear you to pieces. Xue Qianjiang kept the corpse mountain blood sea diagram, and his body expanded violently, finally revealing his original form. In just a few breaths of time, he had turned into a 100-meter-tall crimson beast the size of a small mountain. This giant beast looked like a ferocious tiger, but it had a flat and wide mouth, revealing 2 huge fangs that were more than 10 meters long. It had 6 legs, a pair of wide blood wings, and a tail that resembled a flood dragon's. As for its 6 legs, they looked very strange. They did not look like the feet of a tiger or wolf demonic beast, but more like the claws of an eagle. Roar! The blood-winged beast roared to the sky, flapped its wings crazily, and turned into a blood-red streamer, rushing towards Ji Tianqing. It stretched out a pair of huge front claws, swooped down from the sky, and clawed at Ji Tianqing fiercely. Ji Tianqing had no doubt that even if it was 1,000 feet tall mountain, it would collapse into ruins after being hit by the pair of cold and sharp claws. Moreover, the blood-winged beast's speed was so fast that he had no chance to dodge. At that moment, he did not have the slightest fear or retreat. Without hesitation, he burst out with all his strength and used his trump card. Sword of Judgment. Ji Tianqing took out the sword embryo in his body, and condensed it into a huge golden sword that was dozens of meters long. The huge sword was surrounded by a dazzling golden light, forming a pair of sacred wings, attaching a pair of wings to the huge golden sword. Whoosh! The sword of judgment pierced through the sky and rushed towards the blood-winged beast at the speed of light, bombarding it head-on. After a quarter of an instant, the dazzling golden sword of judgment and the blood-winged beast fiercely collided with each other. Bang! An earth-shattering sound burst out, reverberating fiercely between heaven and earth. The sword of judgment penetrated the blood-winged beast's left front claw on the spot, piercing a huge bloody hole. Then, the sword of judgment pierced through its left front claw and into its body fiercely. Crack! With the crisp sound of bones breaking, the blood-winged beast's body was directly penetrated, and its bones were shattered. The sword of judgment pierced through its body, leaving a huge bloody hole that penetrated its body from the front to the back. This was the sharpness of the ultimate sword principle. It was unstoppable and indestructible. The blood-winged beast was severely injured by the sword. White bone stubble appeared in the wound, and dark red blood gushed out like a flood, sprinkling across the sky. The intense pain made it tremble all over, and it roared furiously. Swoosh! The sword of judgment flew high into the sky, its light dimmed a lot, and its power weakened by 30%. Obviously, this sword also consumed a lot of Ji Tianqing's vital essence. With a thought, he manipulated the sword of judgment to fly back to his front, and quickly shrank to the size of a fingertip, and went back into his dantian. Ji Tianqing's face was a little pale. He operated his vital essence to stabilize his breathing. When he looked up at the blood-winged beast, he saw that the blood-winged beast had turned around and was frantically flapping its wings, flying away as fast as a stream of light. He suddenly frowned, and his face changed. He shouted angrily, "Xue Qianjiang, don't think you can escape." At the same time, he also chased after Xue Qianjiang as fast as a stream of light. He wanted to take advantage of the victory to pursue and capture Xue Qianjiang. However, just as he flew 2,000 meters away, a blood light suddenly came from the side of the sky. Swoosh! It was a ball of burning blood flame, and it wrapped a demon clan man who was as strong as a bull, holding 2 millstone axes in his hands. This man was Xue Li. He had just fought with Long Yun Xiao for hundreds of moves, and he had already defeated Long Yun Xiao. Although he was also seriously injured, his injury was not much better than Long Yunxiao's. But when he saw Xue Qianjiang escaping with injuries, and Ji Tianqing wanted to take advantage of the situation to kill him, he desperately rushed to stop him. Ji Tianqing, come and fight with your grandfather for 300 rounds. Xue Li roared like a bell, waving the 2 millstone axes, and slashing out blood light all over the sky. He rushed to Ji Tianqing without caring about his own safety. Ji Tianqing immediately frowned, and a cold murderous intent flashed in his eyes. You're courting death. He shouted in a low voice, and with a wave of his right hand, a giant flaming sword came out and fiercely blasted toward Xue Li. Bang! Xue Li could not dodge in time, and was immediately hit by the giant flaming sword. The 2 axes were blown away, and he spat out blood and flew back. Chapter 721. With Xue Li's strength, he wasn't qualified to fight with Ji Tianqing for 300 rounds. In fact, he couldn't even take 3 moves from Ji Tianqing. He was killed in 2 moves. However, he didn't expect to stop Ji Tianqing. He just used his life to buy time. Ji Tianqing had tried to kill him, but he was delayed. When Ji Tianqing went to chase after the blood-winged beast, it had already escaped. After a few breaths, the blood-winged beast disappeared into the sky. Ji Tianqing chased for more than 20 miles and lost track of the blood-winged beast. He had to stop. Damn it! He actually let it escape. Xue Qianjiang's giant beast's flying speed is too fast. Ji Tianqing cursed furiously. He was so angry that his face turned ashen, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. The reason why he was so angry was not because Xue Qianjiang escaped. It was because after Xue Qianjiang escaped, no one could help Yunyao break the blood dissipation curse. He didn't dare to imagine how terrible it would be when the curse broke out 3 days later and Yunyao lost her mind and humanity and turned into a female devil. At this moment, Long Yunxiao flew over from the sky. The god of war armor he wore was a little tattered. There were dozens of cracks and pits. There were faint bloodstains and bloody wounds. His face was stained with blood and his hair was messy. He looked a little embarrassed and his injuries were even worse. Tianqing, where's Xue Qianjiang? Long Yunxiao asked as he looked around anxiously, searching for traces of Xue Qianjiang. Ji Tianqing's face was expressionless as he said in a deep voice, his subordinate sacrificed his life to stall me, allowing him to escape successfully. Damn it! How could this be? Long Yunxiao's face changed. He said anxiously and angrily, what about Yao Yao? If we don't catch Xue Qianjiang, who can help her break the curse? Ji Tianqing was silent and didn't say anything. Long Yunxiao was restless and said to Ji Tianqing, what are you waiting for? Let's go back and save Yao Yao. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said expressionlessly, you don't have to go back. I have already made arrangements. Sure enough, as his voice fell, a black shadow sped over from the distant sky. Shua! Long Yunxiao could see clearly that it was a black flood dragon when the black shadow got closer. The little black dragon stopped in front of the 2 of them, carrying the unconscious Yunyao and Ensuan on its back. Seeing that Yunyao had been rescued from the dark wind cave, Long Yunxiao heaved a sigh of relief and felt much more at ease. Let's go, let's return to the emperor's mansion first, then think of a way to save Yao Yao. Ji Tianqing didn't waste any time and hurriedly brought Long Yunxiao onto the little black dragon's back. The little black dragon carried everyone and flew through the sky as fast as lightning, returning to Central State City as quickly as possible. 8 hours later, everyone entered the emperor's mansion and returned to Tianqing Palace. Ji Tianqing threw Ensuan to Long Yunxiao and brought Yunyao into the palace himself. He was anxious to treat Yunyao's injuries. Long Yunxiao originally wanted to enter Tianqing Palace with him and think of a way to save Yunyao first. However, Ensuan had also been corroded by demonic energy and her life was in danger at any time. As the emperor and Insuwen's husband, he naturally couldn't leave Insuwen alone. Long Yunxiao had no choice but to bring Insuwen back to Yunxiao Palace and treat her first. Soon, Ji Tianqing carried Yunyao back to the secret cultivation room. He removed the heavenly spiritual formation in the secret cultivation room and placed Yunyao on a bed of ice jade. He hurriedly circulated his energy to check on her condition. Yunyao's body was surrounded by demonic energy and her fair face was also faintly covered in black energy. Her life aura was becoming weaker and weaker. Ji Tianqing held Yunyao's hands and felt that her palms were ice cold. He circulated his energy to check on Yunyao's condition and discovered that not only was there a violent and powerful demonic energy in Yunyao's body, there was also a mysterious icy energy lingering around her. That mysterious icy energy had already invaded her internal organs, bone marrow, and blood. It was almost impossible to remove it. It was also this energy that made Yunyao's body feel like ice and her life aura was constantly weakening. Even her celestial spirit sacred body bloodline was constantly being devoured by this energy and became weaker and weaker. Ji Tianqing immediately understood that the mysterious icy energy was definitely the demonic blood curse that Xue Qianjiang had mentioned. Unfortunately, he couldn't figure out how to remove the mysterious demonic energy even after carefully examining it for a long time. Ji Tianqing stood beside the ice jade bed and frowned as he fell into deep thought. The power of the demonic blood curse has already merged with Yao Yao's internal organs, bone marrow, and blood. If I want to completely remove the demonic energy, I can only remove her internal organs, bone marrow, and blood. But if I do that, it's equivalent to killing her. She definitely won't be able to survive. Forget it, I'll help her remove the demonic energy in her body first and then think of a way to remove the demonic blood curse. Ji Tianqing recalled that when he, Yunyao, and Long Yunxiao went to Flame Spirit City together at Sky Pillar Sect, Yunyao had been corroded by the demonic energy of the Blood Demon King. At that time, he used a drop of blood from his heart and the sacred power of the Kenshin bloodline to help Yunyao get rid of the demonic energy. Although he lost a drop of blood from his heart and lost 20% of his bloodline power. But after recuperating for 10 days to half a month, he gradually recovered. Now that Xue Qianjiang had planted a demonic curse on Yunyao and she was corroded by the demonic energy, the situation was similar to before. Therefore, Ji Tianqing extended his right index finger without hesitation and used his power to force out a drop of golden blood from his heart and dripped it on Yunyao's forehead. This drop of golden god's blood was extremely powerful and contained a sacred and majestic aura. When the god's blood landed on Yunyao's forehead, it immediately entered her forehead and entered her brain. Then, the god's blood merged with Yunyao's blood and quickly spread to her internal organs, limbs, and bones. The sacred and powerful god's blood was like the scorching sun. The demonic energy in Yunyao's body was like the ice and snow in winter. When the ice and snow met the scorching sun, they naturally melted quickly. As time passed, the demonic energy in Yunyao's body was removed in just a short period of time. The god's blood had completely merged with her bloodline and strengthened her vitality by a lot. Her aura had also temporarily stabilized. But it was a pity that the demonic curse in her body still existed. Even with Ji Tianqing's god's blood, it could only temporarily stop the spread of the demonic curse but could not remove it. Seeing this result, Ji Tianqing's originally pale face became even uglier. Even my Kenshin blood was ineffective. This demonic curse is actually so strange. Could it really be like what Xue Qianjiang said, that only he can remove the demonic curse personally? Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing's heart was burning with anxiety and anger. At this moment, Long Yunzhao's voice sounded from outside the secret room. It was filled with anxiety and worry. Ji Tianqing. How's Yao Yao's situation? Is there any way to save her? Chapter 722. Ji Tianqing frowned. He waved his hand and sent out a 5-colored spirit light, opening the door to the secret room. As soon as the stone door was raised, Long Yunxiao impatiently stepped through the door and entered the secret room. He was still in a sorry state and weak state. He didn't even change his clothes or treat his injuries before rushing over to visit Yunyao. After entering the secret room, he stared at Yunyao and quickly walked to the side of the ice jade bed. He carefully observed Yunyao and asked Ji Tianqing again, "How is Yao Yao?" Ji Tianqing revealed a worried expression and said in a heavy tone, "I used a drop of my heart's blood to help Yao Yao get rid of the demonic energy in her body. However, the demonic blood curse is too strange. Even with my blood, I can only stop the power of the curse from spreading. I can't get rid of it." Long Yunxiao furrowed his brows. The worry in his eyes became even heavier. After a moment of silence, he comforted Ji Tianqing, "Don't worry. I've already reported the news to Divine Teacher Qianye. Divine Teacher Qianye is Yao Yao's teacher. He's a soul-refining realm expert. He'll definitely think of a way to save her." Ji Tianqing nodded. He looked at Long Yunxiao and asked, "Where's the heavenly consort? You rushed over to visit her. Don't tell me you don't care about her life." Long Yunxiao glanced at him and said expressionlessly, "I have a few imperial physicians in my residence. They'll naturally do their best to save the heavenly consort." Hearing his words, Ji Tianqing immediately understood what was going on. Long Yunxiao must have brought Ansuwen back to Yunxiao Palace. He must have left her to the imperial physicians and didn't care about her anymore. Thinking of this, Ansuwen, the heavenly consort, was too pitiful. However, this matter had nothing to do with Ji Tianqing. Of course, he wouldn't comment. After about 15 minutes, 2 light footsteps suddenly came from outside the secret room. The guard guarding the door loudly reporting to the domain lord. 2 divine teachers have come to visit. 2 god-tier masters. Ji Tianqing was stunned as he looked at Long Yunxiao in confusion. Long Yunxiao was also confused, revealing a puzzled expression. Ji Tianqing did not delve into this issue and quickly opened the stone door of the secret chamber. 2 black-robed god-tier masters from the imperial residence stood at the entrance. The black-robed god master on the left was a middle-aged man of the human clan. He was tall and sturdy and had a dignified appearance. This person had a dignified demeanor. His entire body emitted a mysterious and vast aura that was as deep as the night sky. After Long Yunxiao's introduction, Ji Tianqing found out that this person was Yunyao's teacher, God Teacher Qianye. Ji Tianqing hurriedly bowed and greeted God Teacher Qianye. Divine Master Qianye nodded and pointed at the black-robed Divine Master. "This is Divine Master Wulong." Ji Tianqing turned to look at Divine Sovereign Wulong. Divine Teacher Wulong was a skinny old demon with white hair and a beard. Judging from his appearance, he seemed to be from the spiritual monkey clan. His body was a little hunched, and his benevolent appearance made him look very benevolent. Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao hurriedly led the 2 god-tier masters into the secret chamber. Divine Master Qianye brought Divine Master Wulong to the frozen jade bed and sized up the unconscious Yunyao. Divine Master Wulong remained silent. He secretly used his divine spirit to check on Yunyao's injuries. Divine Master Qianye saw that Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao were confused, so he explained to them, "Just now, the Emperor reported to me that Yunyao was corrupted by the demonic qi and was even planted with the blood dissipation curse. I don't know much about the blood dissipation curse, so I asked Divine Master Wulong for help." Among the few god-tier masters in the imperial residence, Divine Master Wulong is the most proficient in curses. He's the most knowledgeable about curses from different clans. After listening to his explanation, Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao finally understood what was going on. The 2 of them looked at Divine Master Wulong with burning eyes. Their hearts were filled with anxiety and anticipation. After a while, Divine Master Wulong finished checking on Yunyao's condition and quietly retracted his divine spirit. He frowned and stroked his white beard. He looked like he was deep in thought. Divine Master Qianye asked, "Divine Master Wulong, how is Yunyao?" Divine Master Wulong shook his head gently and said with a serious face, Yun Yao's condition is very bad. Although someone helped her to remove the demonic qi from her body, the blood dissipation curse's power has already seeped into her bones. It's almost impossible to remove it. Hearing this, God Saint Qianyi frowned. Is it that serious? Will she lose her life? Divine Master Wulong shook his head again and said calmly, the blood dissipation curse won't take her life in a short period of time. She won't die for the time being. However, after 3 days, the curse's power will be completely unleashed. Yun Yao will lose her mind and her humanity. She will become a bloodthirsty demon. As far as I know, the blood dissipation curse is an inherited secret technique of the demonic tribe in the northern desert. It's very complicated to cast this curse. It needs to consume the blood of countless living beings. However, once the blood dissipation curse is formed, it will quickly invade one's internal organs and merge into one's bone marrow and blood. Other than the person who cast the curse, almost no one can remove this curse. The hope in Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao's eyes immediately vanished after hearing Divine Master Wulong's words. Ji Tianqing was filled with unwillingness. He asked Divine Master Wulong, other than the person who cast the curse, is there really no one who can remove this curse? Divine Master Wulong turned to look at him. He pondered for a moment and said, although I've studied the curse techniques of various races, I'm helpless against the blood dissipation curse. This curse technique is too vicious. If I must say, other than the person who cast the curse, I'm afraid there's only one person in the Tianxian continent who can forcefully remove this curse. Ji Tianqing asked unconsciously, who? Divine Master Wulong pointed to the top of his head and said with an arrogant tone, of course it's the #1 elite warrior of the continent, the prefecture master. Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment. After a moment of silence, he said with a serious tone, may I ask, how can I see the prefecture master? You want to see the prefecture master? You want the prefecture master to remove the curse for Yun Yao? Divine Master Wulong looked at him with a frown and said with a strange tone. Ji Tianqing nodded seriously and said with a serious tone, Divine Master Wulong, I know this is a sudden idea. However, in order to save Yun Yao, I cannot give up on any hope. Divine Master Wulong remained silent and did not know what to say. However, Divine Master Qianye stepped out to help him out. He said to Ji Tianqing with a serious tone, Prince Tianqing, the prefecture master is a super elite warrior who is elusive. Who can see him? Not to mention you wanting to see the prefecture master, even I haven't seen him for many years. I understand how you feel, but this method is indeed not feasible. You should give up on this idea. Instantly, Ji Tianqing was filled with disappointment. His eyes were filled with anxiety. He turned to look at Divine Master Wulong and could not help but ask, Divine Master Wulong, is there really no way to save Yun Yao? Chapter 723. Ji Tianqing's words caused the secret chamber to fall into silence. Divine Master Qianye and Long Yunxiao were silent. Divine Master Wulong closed his eyes and tried his best to recall. Suddenly, he remembered something. He suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Ji Tianqing with bright eyes. He said in a deep voice, I remember now. There is indeed a way to save Yun Yao. Ji Tianqing was overjoyed. He quickly asked, what is it? Please enlighten me, Divine Master. Long Yunxiao also said excitedly, as long as there is a way. No matter what, I have to save her. Divine Master Wulong quickly waved his hand and said, don't be too happy. Although my idea can save Yun Yao, it can't get rid of the blood dissipation curse. The two of them were puzzled and looked at him with puzzled expressions. Divine Master Wulong said in a serious tone, I can't get rid of the blood dissipation curse in Yun Yao's body. However, I can use the Qingyuan clan's secret technique, transplant, to transfer the power of the blood dissipation curse in her body to another person's body. In this way, Yun Yao will be freed. However, the other person will still be turned into a demon after the blood dissipation curse's power. Therefore, this is the only way. Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao were stunned after hearing Divine Master Wulong's words. They did not expect Divine Master Wulong to come up with such a solution. However, they were only stunned for a moment before they said in unison, "I'm willing to bear the blood dissipation curse." When they said this at the same time, they looked at each other and saw the determination in each other's eyes. Divine Master Wulong and Divine Master Qianye were stunned when they saw this. They exchanged glances secretly and immediately understood what was going on. The atmosphere in the secret room was a little strange. Divine Master Wulong raised his eyebrows and looked at Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao. He said in a serious tone, "I can't guarantee that this method will work. Moreover, to increase the success rate, the person who bore the blood-dissipating demon curse had to be stronger than Yunyao. Their mind and soul had to be tougher. Of course, if the grafting fails, you may lose your lives immediately. The two of you, please reconsider." Long Yunxiao pursed his lips and said firmly, "Divine Master Wulong, let me do it." Before Wulong could answer, Ji Tianqing said in a serious tone, "No. Emperor, you are the emperor of the imperial court, you can't risk your life. If something happens to you, how are we going to explain it to the imperial court? I'm the only one who can do this." Long Yunxiao smiled wryly and said without hesitation, "If I can save Yao Yao, it's worth it for me to take this risk." Ji Tianqing shook his head again and said in a sonorous tone, "Your strength is not as good as mine, and your mind and soul are not as tough as mine. Only if I substitute you will it be easier to succeed. Don't fight with me. I am Yao Yao's future husband. Only I have the right to bear the blood-dissipating demon curse for her." Long Yunxiao's face turned pale when he heard that. He was speechless and had nothing to say. Wulong nodded in agreement and said to Long Yunxiao, "Emperor, with your current strength and condition, it will be difficult for you to succeed." Then, he looked at Ji Tianqing and said in a serious tone, "Prince Tianqing, if the grafting fails, you may lose your life. Have you thought about it?" Ji Tianqing nodded calmly and looked gently at Yun Yao who was unconscious. He said, "If I can exchange for her safety, so what if I lose my life? All right, let me make the preparations." Wulong nodded and agreed. He then pulled Divine Master Qianye to a corner of the secret room to discuss the next step of the plan. Not only did Wulong need Ji Tianqing's cooperation, but he also needed Divine Master Qianye's help. Long Yunxiao looked at Ji Tianqing with a complicated expression and said in a low voice, "No matter what, I hope that the two of you will be safe." Ji Tianqing was a little surprised. He looked up at him and nodded silently. Half an hour later, Wulong and Divine Master Qianye came up with a plan. They worked together to set up a formation in the secret room. Divine Master Qianye set up a soul-grade defensive formation to protect the entire secret room and prevent the energy from leaking out. The formation that Wulong set up was specially prepared for grafting so that it could increase the success rate. Once the formation was ready, Divine Master Wulong began to cast the spell. He asked Ji Tianqing to sit cross-legged in the middle of the formation so that he could adjust his true essence. After Ji Tianqing adjusted his condition, Wulong unleashed an invisible force that enveloped Yun Yao on the frozen jade bed and landed in front of Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao sat facing each other with their palms pressed together. Next, Wulong activated the power of the formation and began to cast the grafting spell. Divine Master Qianye sat at the side and assisted Divine Master Wulong. Long Yunxiao sat quietly in the corner of the secret room and watched everything with concern. He did not make a sound so that he would not disturb the others. As Wulong began to cast the spell, Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao were immediately enveloped by a cloud of hazy white light. Ji Tianqing's true essence began to circulate. Like a stream of warm water, it slowly flowed into Yun Yao's body. Then, the true essence flowed through Yun Yao's internal organs and blood vessels. With the help of the grafting spell, it absorbed the power of the blood-dissipating curse. When the true essence flowed through Yun Yao's body and returned to Ji Tianqing's body, it also brought back the power of the blood-dissipating curse. The power of the curse spread rapidly and invaded Ji Tianqing's internal organs, blood vessels, and meridians. Fortunately, he had merged with the Kenshin bloodline. His blood had the characteristics of God's blood and was not affected by the blood-dissipating curse. However, his internal organs and bone marrow were being corroded by the power of the curse. The pain of corrosion and the cold air were constantly coming from him. As the true essence circulated, more and more of the curse's power was absorbed from Yun Yao's body. Ji Tianqing was also being corroded by the blood-dissipating curse more and more. His body became as cold as ice. It was as if his entire body had been frozen. His skin was pale and bloodless. His vitality and soul aura were also rapidly weakening. The grafting process was very slow. Wulong was very careful when he cast the spell and did not make any mistakes. After 12 hours, the blood-dissipating curse in Yun Yao's body was finally completely transferred into Ji Tianqing's body. Yun Yao was finally out of danger and had returned to normal. Her skin gradually became crystal clear and had the color of blood. Her vitality was also gradually becoming stronger. On the other hand, Ji Tianqing's body was weak. His vitality and soul aura were as weak as a candle in the wind. Chapter 724. Divine Master Wulong had finally finished casting his spell. Divine Master Qian Yi also stopped. Seeing this, Long Yunxiao quickly stood up and carefully observed Yun Yao's condition. Seeing that Yun Yao's complexion had improved significantly and that there was no longer any demonic qi and mysterious cold energy left in her body, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. However, when he saw that Ji Tianqing's aura was weak and that he looked like an ice sculpture, he was extremely worried. Divine Master Wulong and Divine Master Qian Yi looked at Ji Tianqing deeply and sighed silently. Sigh. We've succeeded in replacing the flower with the tree. This kid's wish has finally been fulfilled. The number one prodigy of the human race is going to be demonized for the sake of the woman he loves. This is really sad. Although the two divine masters were extremely powerful, they could not help but feel sorry for Ji Tianqing when they saw him in such a state. Seeing that Ji Tianqing was still conscious, Divine Master Wulong said to him, "Prince Tianqing, we've succeeded in replacing the flower with the tree. Yun Yao is safe and sound now. You can rest assured now. As for you, it's up to you whether you can withstand the power of the demonic curse. Although the chances are slim, I still hope that a miracle will happen." Ji Tianqing slowly raised his head and looked at Divine Master Wulong with his blurry eyes. His voice was low and hoarse as he said, "Thank you, Divine Master Wulong, for your help. Please, take Yun Yao away. Let me cultivate. Resist the demonic curse. After 3 days, if I lose my humanity, if I become a demon, please seal the secret chamber. Don't harm anyone else." No matter how strong Ji Tianqing's willpower was, it was difficult for him to stay conscious at this moment. His speech was strenuous. Seeing him like this, the two divine masters who had lived for hundreds of years could not help but respect him even though they had lived for hundreds of years. Long Yunxiao was filled with emotions and admiration. He secretly clenched his fists and said solemnly, "Ji Tianqing, you have to pull yourself together. You've already created so many miracles. This monarch believes in you. This time, you'll also survive. This monarch is waiting for you to come out safely. Remember, if you don't return safely, Yao Yao will hate you forever." Ji Tianqing sat on the ground like an ice sculpture. His consciousness and thoughts were on the verge of freezing. He could no longer speak and could only nod his head with difficulty. Long Yunxiao took a deep breath and suppressed the sorrow and heaviness in his heart. Then, he and the two divine masters brought Yun Yao out of the secret chamber. With a muffled bang sound, the incomparably heavy stone door closed. The secret chamber fell into darkness. Only the gemstone lamps in the four corners were still dimly lit. Ji Tianqing sat alone in the middle of the secret room, motionless like a stone statue. His body became as cold as ice, and his life force became weaker and weaker. Unknowingly, a day had passed. The news quickly spread throughout the monarch palace. Many god-tier masters and monarch princes knew about this. Inside Kunwu Palace, Kunwu was meditating and cultivating in his room. Suddenly, a guard came into the room and respectfully reported the news to him. When Kunwu heard the report, his expression changed and he frowned. Yun Yao was hit by the blood dissipation curse. Ji Tianqing actually asked God-tier Master Wulong to use the flower substitution technique to take the curse for Yun Yao. That blood dissipation curse is extremely vicious. If Ji Tianqing can't neutralize it, he'll either lose his life or become a devoid of humanity. If he really loses his life because of this, Ku will be so sad when she finds out. Ji Tianqing, this guy, sigh. Kunwu was full of worry. He quickly left Kunwu Palace and rushed to Tianqing Palace to visit. In Yichen Palace, Ling Yichen was also shocked when he heard the news. He frowned and murmured worriedly, "We haven't seen each other for just 3 months, and such a thing happened. Ji Tianqing is so infatuated with Yun Yao." Sigh. It's a pity that I haven't been able to become friends with him. I haven't completed my mission, and he's already in such a desperate situation. Ji Tianqing, oh Ji Tianqing, you're the #1 genius with the Kenshin bloodline. Don't die prematurely. Ling Yichen sighed with a heavy heart. He quickly left the cave and rushed to Tianqing Palace to check on the situation. Inside Yuji Palace, Yuji's eyes widened when she heard the news. Ji Tianqing, this guy, is actually so infatuated that he doesn't even want his life for his sweetheart. Sigh, what a pity. This kid has only been in the monarch mansion for a few months. He's just made a name for himself, and now he's going to die like this. Yuji sighed and left the cave as well. She rushed to Tianqing Palace. Inside Lingfeng Palace, Murong Lingfeng was recuperating when he suddenly heard the news. He immediately revealed a smug sneer. "Ha ha ha, the heavens are really helping me. I was thinking of ways to deal with him, but I didn't expect him to die so soon." Humph. So what if he's the #1 genius of the human race? He's just an idiot who lost his life for a woman. It's best if he's dead. It saves me a lot of trouble. Inside Tianqing Palace, several experts had already gathered outside the door of the secret chamber. Yun Yao had already woken up. Although her injuries had not healed and her body was very weak, she had already heard the news. But when she found out what had happened, she immediately burst into tears and rushed back to the Sky Air Palace. She rushed to the door of the secret chamber and called out Ji Tianqing's name in a mournful voice. Her heart ached so much that she almost suffocated. She had been standing outside the secret chamber for several hours now. Her eyes were fixed on the stone door. She was motionless, waiting for Ji Tianqing to appear. "Tianqing, oh Tianqing, why did you bear the curse for me? Don't tell me you don't want your life anymore. I'd rather die than let you die for me. If you're really gone, how can I live alone?" Yun Yao thought to herself. Her clear eyes were filled with tears. She was extremely sorrowful. Long Yunxiao simply treated his injuries and stood outside the secret chamber. He waited patiently as he prayed for Ji Tianqing in his heart. Apart from the two of them, Divine Master Wulong and Divine Master Qinya were also present. They were waiting for the result. Soon, Kuan Wu, Ling Yi, Fox Princess, and a few other human princes arrived outside the secret chamber. They discussed with their spiritual sense for a while before they fell silent. Everyone waited quietly. Their hearts were heavy and sorrowful. As time passed silently, the mysterious power of the blood dissipation curse quickly spread and grew in Ji Tianqing's body. It was becoming more and more powerful. Although he had been trying his best to resist, he could not resist the power of the curse. His bone marrow and internal organs began to stiffen and die. No matter how strong his will was, he could not hold on any longer. His intelligence and thoughts were completely frozen. Although his soul was still alive, he had lost his intelligence and ability to think. His soul was gradually being controlled by the power of the curse. His physical body sat in a secret chamber, motionless like a stone statue. Chapter 725. Scenes of bloody massacres flashed through Ji Tianqing's mind. Those scenes were clearly reflected in his soul, making him feel as if he was there. In a bustling city, the common people lived and worked in peace. The streets were crowded with people. Suddenly, a huge black beast that was 100 meters tall descended into the city with a monstrous black fog and demonic aura. The huge demonic beast rampaged through the city and started a massacre. In an instant, it destroyed 2 streets and trampled thousands of innocent people, turning them into blood and meat paste. The blood and slaughter stimulated it, making it laugh wildly in excitement. It waved its paws and destroyed the buildings and streets. In less than a quarter of an hour, it had destroyed half of the city and cruelly massacred hundreds of thousands of people. It turned the city into ruins and blood flowed like a river. Ji Tianqing's soul watched all of this happen, and he felt a strong sense of excitement and mania. He was filled with a thirst for slaughter and blood. When this scene was about to disappear, the ferocious huge demonic beast glanced at him meaningfully. Then, a new scene appeared. In a village with simple folk customs, there were thousands of simple and honest people who worked from sunrise to sunset, working hard in the fields. Suddenly, the huge demonic beast that was 100 meters tall charged into the village. It rampaged and crushed everything in its way, destroying the entire village. Countless people were trampled to death by the huge demonic beast and smashed into meat paste. Those young children and crying babies were actually caught by the giant magic beasts and stuffed into their mouths to chew on. In an instant, the entire village was turned into ruins. None of the thousands of people escaped. They were all killed by the huge demonic beast. Ji Tianqing's soul completely lost control. It was stimulated by such a bloody scene, and it only wanted to kill to vent. Following that, one cruel scene after another invaded his soul. His soul started to lose its self-awareness, and he was about to be immersed in mania and slaughter. Once his soul lost its self-awareness, it would be devoured by slaughter and become a bloodthirsty demon with no humanity and no intelligence. At this moment, a voice filled with vicissitudes and majesty suddenly resounded in his soul. The heart demon of all ages has caused the world to fall into oblivion. With a pure heart, the spiritual altar will turn into a bright lamp. This was the voice of a young man. It was divine, dignified, and filled with a righteous aura. Moreover, it carried a powerful aura of looking down upon the world and all living beings. This voice was like the morning bell and evening drum, thought-provoking, instantly reaching the deepest part of Ji Tianqing's soul. His soul that was about to lose itself was finally awakened by this voice that sounded like a divine decree, and he was instantly incomparably stunned and surprised. This was because he was most familiar with this voice. It was his own voice. Or perhaps, that voice was exactly the same as his, without any difference. Ji Tianqing immediately became much more clear-headed. His soul regained some of its intelligence as he pondered over the words. Just as he was pondering over the meaning of those words, the 100-meter-tall ferocious beast appeared before him out of thin air. In the depths of his soul, there was a dark void. He was only a handsome young man in a white robe who was 7 feet tall. He stood in the darkness like a stone statue, unable to move. That 100-meter-tall demonic beast was like a huge mountain, standing in front of him and looking down at him from above. Without waiting for him to react, the ferocious demonic beast opened a pair of demonic claws and slapped down from the sky. The two claws of the ferocious demonic beast were like two palaces crashing down, and were about to smash Ji Tianqing into pieces. At this moment, Ji Tianqing's body was sealed, and his life's cultivation was completely gone. He was like an ice sculpture, unable to move at all. That ferocious demonic beast was as huge as a mountain, and had the power to destroy heaven and earth. Just as the two huge demonic claws were about to arrive above his head, and were about to kill him. At this critical moment, the familiar voice rang out in the depths of his soul. If great perfection is lacking, there is no harm in its use. If great abundance is rushing, there is no end to its use. All things carry yin to embrace yang, rushing qi is harmony. This voice that came from an unknown place was as solemn and sacred as a god. It was actually chanting some obscure and profound law formula. When Ji Tianqing heard this strange and mysterious law formula, his soul actually began to throb, as if he had heard it before. It was also at this moment that he suddenly had an epiphany. It was as if his soul had been enlightened, and the seal on his body that had been sealed like a statue was immediately lifted. He could finally move. Whoosh! Ji Tianqing dodged without hesitation, brushing past the two demonic claws, narrowly avoiding a calamity. The ferocious demonic beast clearly didn't expect that he would be able to dodge at this critical moment, even though his strength was sealed in ice and he was like a stone statue waiting to be slaughtered. Roar! The ferocious demonic beast let out an angry roar. Its eyes flashed with a dark red light, and its entire body emitted a monstrous killing intent. It waved its giant claws once more, viciously slamming them towards Ji Tianqing. It also released tens of thousands of blood-red beams of light that rained down like a rain of arrows. From the depths of Ji Tianqing's soul, the sacred and solemn voice rang out once more, chanting some obscure and mysterious law formula. A bend is complete, a crook is straight, a depression is abundant, a depression is new, a little is gain, a lot is confusion. The pure heart is fearless, endless mysteries, the void maintains tranquility, the Tao of heaven and earth. This voice caused Ji Tianqing to become more and more clear-headed, and his mind and thoughts gradually returned to normal. This strange yet familiar law formula caused his soul to resonate with it, giving rise to all sorts of enlightenment. The many stiff and frozen parts of his body were rapidly dissolved. Within his body, an endless stream of energy appeared, naturally circulating according to the law formula. It actually produced an even more sacred and boundless energy. He felt his body become lighter and lighter, as light as a feather, as light as snow. He moved with the wind, and with a single thought, he could travel dozens of miles, freely moving in the darkness. Whoosh! When the two demonic claws and tens of thousands of blood-red beams of light attacked him, he only needed a single thought to teleport 20 miles away, quickly distancing himself from the ferocious demonic beast. The tens of thousands of blood-red beams of light were immediately swallowed up by the void of darkness. The ferocious demonic beast missed again, and became even more enraged and irritable. It charged over as fast as a streak of light. Ji Tianqing's soul memorized the mysterious law formula. He silently cultivated, causing his strength to become stronger and stronger, producing all sorts of mysteries. Following that, the ferocious demonic beast continued to attack him, using all sorts of methods to launch ferocious attacks. Ji Tianqing used the mysterious law formula to deal with the ferocious demonic beast while silently deducing in his soul. This powerful ferocious demonic beast should be the ancient heart demon. Chapter 726. Ji Tianqing had always been tenacious and unyielding since he was a child. Ever since he stepped onto the path of martial arts, he had never encountered an inner demon tribulation. Now, the blood dissipation curse's power was gradually erupting, finally causing an inner demon to form in him. If not for that majestic voice in the depths of his soul would have almost been demonized by the inner demon. But why is that sacred and majestic voice ringing out from the depths of my soul? That's not the voice of the burial of heaven. It's my own voice. Could that be my inner voice? But I've never come into contact with this mysterious technique before. If that voice had been from the burial of heaven, giving him a mysterious technique at a critical moment to resist the ancient inner demon, he could still understand. But that voice was not from the burial of heaven, but from the depths of his soul. It was as if the dusty memories in his soul had been awakened at this critical moment of life and death. This kind of miraculous and profound matter made Ji Tianqing feel incredulous. He did not know how long had passed. It could have been 2 days, or 2 months. He had finally comprehended the cultivation technique thoroughly. Now that he had cultivated it completely, his soul had gained an epiphany. So, this is a technique that specializes in restraining demons. It's called the White Heart Demon Subduing Technique. After understanding this, Ji Tianqing became more confident and full of anticipation. I've been dealing with the inner demon for 2 days. I've finally mastered the White Heart Demon Subduing Technique. This dark void is the deepest part of my soul. That damned heart demon will never run out of power here. I can't deal with it anymore. I have to find a way to defeat it. Only then can I get rid of the inner demon, escape from the depths of my soul, and truly awaken. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing teleported to avoid the ancient inner demon's attack while launching a counterattack. He stretched out his arms and waved his palms as nimbly as lightning. He used the White Heart Demon Subduing Technique and shot out 2 dazzling golden sword auras that were hundreds of meters long. Demon Slaying Sword. Following his angry roar, the 2 sacred golden swords pierced toward the ancient inner demon with a righteous aura. Bam bam. Amidst the loud noise, the golden sword pierced the ancient inner demon's chest and sent it flying back 1,000 meters in the dark void. The surface of its body was covered with dark and cold scales, which had a strong defense. The giant golden sword shattered its scales and left 2 bloody holes in its chest, from which demonic blood spurted out. However, the ancient heart demon was only lightly injured and did not suffer any fatal injuries. It was provoked to the point that it became even more enraged. It exploded with even more power and pounced towards Ji Tianqing. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing suddenly understood and thought to himself, no matter if it's a human, a demon, or a devil, the chest and heart are all fatal points. The ancient heart demon will definitely guard against it. Its fatal weakness is not in its chest, it must be somewhere else. I have to find it. He immediately activated the White Heart Demon Subduing Art and channeled its mysterious power into his eyes. Pure Heart Dharma Eye. Instantly, Ji Tianqing's eyes became deep and mysterious. His pupils also turned golden. His eyes were bright and contained an unfathomable power. When he looked at the ancient heart demon again, he saw a completely different scene. It was no longer a giant black beast that was 100 meters tall. His pure heart Dharma eye could see through camouflage, demonic transformation, and falsehood. He saw the essence of the ancient heart demon at a glance. In Ji Tianqing's Dharma eye, the ancient heart demon's giant beast form was just a layer of hazy camouflage. The essence of the ancient heart demon was a ball of dark red fire in the shape of a heart that kept beating. Humph! The ancient heart demon is just so. Watch me seal the demon with one palm. Ji Tianqing snorted coldly. He waved his palms and cast a spell. His aura was like a rainbow as he slapped out a huge golden palm that covered the sky. Demon Sealing Palm. Boom! Amidst a deafening noise, the giant golden palm hit the ancient heart demon hard. A sacred golden light exploded and lit up the darkness within 100 miles. The mysterious and unfathomable magic power instantly destroyed the 100-meter-tall, mountain-like body of the ancient inner demon. Crack! With a clear shattering sound, its ferocious body was immediately shattered into thousands of pieces that scattered in the darkness. The ancient heart demon's giant beast camouflage was broken and its essence was finally revealed. A ball of blood-red fire the size of a house floated in the darkness like a heart, beating loudly. The ancient heart demon was obviously stunned. It didn't expect Ji Tianqing to change so much and become so powerful. Not only did he regain his consciousness and intelligence, but he could also break its camouflage. It was immediately enraged. Demonic flames surged up and turned into a blood-red light that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. It swept towards Ji Tianqing like a torrential flood. The boundless blood-red light was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it drowned the darkness and enveloped Ji Tianqing. Suddenly, the ancient heart demon's power exploded to the extreme and crazily eroded Ji Tianqing's intelligence and thoughts. Ji Tianqing, who was still conscious, suddenly became sluggish and confused. He was about to be assimilated by the ancient heart demon. This was the true power of the ancient heart demon. The ancient heart demon was not terrifying because it attacked and killed in the form of a giant beast, but because it eroded one's soul and intelligence, causing one to lose their consciousness and humanity. Ji Tianqing fell into the boundless blood-red light. His movements became slower and slower, and his strength became weaker and weaker. The boundless blood-red light also gradually converged and merged into his body and soul. However, Ji Tianqing still maintained a trace of intelligence in the deepest part of his soul. He was still silently using the white heart demon subduing art. 6 hours passed. The white heart demon subduing art allowed him to remain conscious and his power continued to awaken. He blocked the ancient heart demon's invasion. 12 hours later, the white heart demon subduing art became stronger and stronger. He began to remove the ancient heart demon's power. 24 hours later, he removed all the blood-red light that invaded his body and his body regained its freedom. On the other hand, the ancient heart demon's power gradually weakened and could no longer invade him. The great Tao is flawed, the pure heart is untainted, the three pure ones transform into Qi, the mysterious heaven demon subduing art. Ji Tianqing stood in the boundless blood-red light. He waved his hands and formed a profound seal. He had a serious expression as he shouted. He had finally mastered the white heart demon subduing art. He had completely comprehended it and used the most powerful demon subduing ultimate kill. A sacred golden light surged out of his body and enveloped him. The golden light became denser and denser, and the accumulated power became more and more powerful. 100 breaths later, his power was accumulated to the peak. He finally opened his arms and slammed forward with all his might. In that instant, boundless divine golden light spread out in all directions, erupting with a divine and awe-inspiring might. Boom! With a loud bang, the sacred golden light dispelled the blood-red light in all directions and completely purified the ancient heart demon's power. In just a few breaths' time, all the blood-red light that had filled the darkness was completely dispelled. The jade world was clear, and the blood-red light dissipated. The ancient heart demon's power was completely eliminated. The boundless darkness was enveloped by the sacred golden light, becoming bright and warm. Thousands of golden flowers fell from the sky above Ji Tianqing's head. Thousands of golden lotuses bloomed under his feet. Flowers fell from the sky, and golden lotuses bloomed from the ground. Chapter 727. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing's soul consciousness immediately left the depths of his soul and returned to his body. He slowly opened his eyes and saw that he was still sitting in the secret chamber, motionless on the ground. Just now, his battle with the ancient heart devil and his cultivation of the white heart devil subduing art had all happened in his soul consciousness. Luckily, he had mastered the heart demon subduing spell and got rid of the heart demon. When he circulated his energy to check the condition of his body, he found that the blood dissipation curse in his body had been removed. Originally, the blood dissipation curse had invaded his body and sealed him in ice like a statue. But now, he had gotten rid of the blood dissipation curse and his body was back to normal. Not only that, but Ji Tianqing was also surprised to find that his body had been tempered and strengthened by more than 2 times. He had secretly reached the 6th level of Sky Origin stage. He had achieved the ultimate sword body. He was surprised and confused at the same time. I just got rid of the heart demon and the blood dissipation curse. How did it strengthen my body and increase my cultivation level? How did I achieve the ultimate sword body? He thought for a while and soon understood the reason. The blood dissipation curse had invaded his internal organs and bone marrow, causing them to be stiff and necrotic. His body was almost dead. But he had mastered the heart demon subduing spell and got rid of the blood dissipation curse. The heart demon subduing spell's sacred power had also repaired his internal organs and bone marrow. First it was destroyed and then repaired. That was the process of strengthening and refining. That was why he could achieve the ultimate sword body and reach Sky Origin stage level 6. This is great. This is a blessing in disguise. Not only did I get rid of the blood dissipation curse, I mastered the heart demon subduing spell and achieved the ultimate sword body. My cultivation level has also increased by 1 level. Now that I have achieved the ultimate sword body, my speed, strength, and defense have all reached the pinnacle. My combat power has also increased by more than 2 times. Plus, I have mastered the heart demon subduing spell. It is a spell that can suppress the demons. If I meet any powerful demons in the future, I will be able to kill them easily. Ji Tianqing was excited. He was happy that he had survived a disaster. He quickly stood up and walked around in the secret room to stretch his limbs. I don't know how long I've been in the secret chamber. Yao Yao should be awake by now, right? She must be very worried and anxious to see me, right? Ji Tianqing suddenly thought of this question and walked towards the door of the secret room. He couldn't wait to see Yun Yao so that she wouldn't worry. Outside the door of the secret chamber, several powerhouses were currently gathered. Yun Yao, Long Yun Xiao, Kuan Wu, Ling Yichen, Fox Princess, the little black dragon and the little ice fox had been waiting outside for 5 days. In the past 5 days, more than a dozen princes and divine masters had visited Tianqing Palace. When everyone found out that Ji Tianqing had not appeared, they all left. However, Yun Yao, Long Yun Xiao, Kuan Wu, Ling Yichen and the others never left. Everyone's mood became more and more sorrowful, and the atmosphere became more and more sorrowful and bleak. Everyone knew that after 5 days, the power of the blood dissipation curse had long been exhausted. Ji Tianqing still hadn't appeared, and there was no movement in the secret chamber. He must be dead. Long Yunxiao's mood was also very sorrowful. However, when he saw Yun Yao's despondent and disheartened appearance, he suppressed his sorrow and advised her, Yao Yao. We should go. His voice was a little low and dry. Clearly, it wasn't easy for him to say these words. Yun Yao didn't say anything. She only shook her head lightly. Her tear-filled eyes were still staring at the door of the secret chamber. She didn't want to look away for even a moment. Long Yunxiao had already expected her to react this way. He advised, Yao Yao, we all know how vicious the power of the blood dissipation curse is. Tianqing sacrificed himself so that you could live well. If he saw you so sorrowful, his heart would definitely ache. Kuan Wu, Ling Yiju, and Fox Princess couldn't bear to see Yun Yao's overly sorrowful appearance. They all comforted her. Yun Yao, Tianqing is infatuated with you. That's why he made such a decision. As the saying goes, you will get what you ask for. Only if you live well will you be worthy of his efforts. Although we also pray for Tianqing and hope that he can create a miracle, 5 days have passed. The hope is too slim. Yun Yao, you must pull yourself together. Hearing everyone's advice, Yun Yao still stared at the stone door and said in a low but determined voice, if you don't want to wait, then leave. I won't leave. Even if there's only a sliver of hope, I won't give up. I believe in Tianqing. I've gone through so many storms with him, and he's survived so many life and death situations. This time, he will also create a miracle. He said that he would grow old with me hand in hand and would never abandon me. I believe in his promise. He won't leave without me. Yun Yao's eyes were filled with tears, and her voice trembled as she spoke. Everyone could feel her sorrow. Their hearts clenched, and their eyes reddened. At this moment, a few more powerhouses arrived at Tianqing Palace and came to the corridor outside the secret chamber. Among these powerhouses, the leaders were Divine Masters Wulong and Qian Yi. Ji Tianqing's mentor, Divine Master Clear Cloud, was also here. Behind the three Divine Masters were Murong Lingfeng and a few other human princes. They were all here to check on the situation. The three Divine Masters walked to the door of the secret chamber and looked at the tightly shut stone door. Their eyes dimmed. Divine Master Wulong looked at the sorrowful crowd and said in a solemn voice, "Everyone, 5 days have passed. Prince Tianqing's chances of survival are very slim. There's no movement in the secret chamber. Prince Tianqing definitely didn't turn into a demon, but he must have been corroded into blood and ashes by the power of the blood dissipation curse. Everyone, disperse. There's no point in waiting any longer." After he finished speaking, a few princes turned and left. The three Divine Masters stopped for a moment, shook their heads, sighed, and left as well. Outside the secret chamber, only Yun Yao, Long Yunshao, Kuan Wu, and Ling Yichen were left. They were the princes who were on good terms with Ji Tianqing. Of course, Murong Lingfeng did not leave. He glanced at the heartbroken Yun Yao and the sorrowful crowd. A mocking sneer flashed across his eyes. "Ha! 5 days have already passed. Ji Tianqing must have died without leaving even dregs behind. What are you all still waiting here for? Haven't you given up yet? Do you really think that Ji Tianqing can still create a miracle? Ha ha ha. Even the Divine Masters are helpless against the blood dissipation curse. Ji Tianqing is not a god. How can he break the curse?" Everyone was sorrowful. Murong Lingfeng, on the other hand, was full of pride and joy. Long Yunshao, Kuan Wu, and the others instantly turned around and glared angrily at him when they heard him. Their eyes were filled with dense rage and killing intent. Yun Yao also turned around slowly to look at Murong Lingfeng. Her eyes were extremely cold and filled with murderous intent. Murong Lingfeng could not help but sneer when he saw everyone's reaction. "What's the point of glaring at me? Let's hurry up and collect Ji Tianqing's corpse. Oh, I forgot. He must have turned into a pool of blood. Not even a corpse is left. Ha ha ha." Long Yunshao and Kuan Wu were furious. They clenched their fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. They could not help but want to teach Murong Lingfeng a lesson. This fella's mouth was too vicious. However, at this moment, the stone door of the secret chamber that had been motionless all this time suddenly moved. Along with a muffled rumbling sound, the tall and heavy stone door actually slowly opened. Chapter 728. When the heavy stone door slowly opened, everyone outside the door was stunned. Everyone instantly quieted down and stared at the door of the secret room with their eyes wide open. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. Everyone's breathing and heartbeat stopped. When the heavy dark brown stone door completely opened, a handsome and tall figure appeared in front of everyone. Everyone was stunned. This handsome and valiant young man in a white robe was the person everyone had been waiting for, Ji Tianqing. He didn't look weak or injured at all. Instead, he was in high spirits and exuded a confident and powerful aura. There was a hazy golden spiritual light in the secret room that enveloped his figure and formed a hazy illusion. It made him look holy and majestic, like a god that had descended from the heavens. Everyone couldn't help but recall what Murong Lingfeng had said just now. Even the god-tier masters were helpless against the blood dissipation curse. Ji Tianqing isn't a god. How can he dispel the curse? Murong Lingfeng's words were still ringing in their ears, but Ji Tianqing had appeared safe and sound. He wasn't injured at all, and he was in high spirits. His aura was holy and majestic, just like a god. This was a miracle. Everyone's expressions became extremely interesting. They all revealed looks of disbelief, as if they had seen a miracle. Yun Yao, who had been the most sorrowful, was the first to come back to her senses. She stared at Ji Tianqing, and the sorrow in her heart disappeared. Her pale and bloodless face regained its vigor, and she revealed a smile. She cried tears of joy. The tears that had accumulated in her clear eyes immediately gushed out, and large teardrops rolled down her face. When Ji Tianqing looked at her with a gentle smile and gentle eyes, she couldn't hold back her excitement anymore. She stepped forward and threw herself at Ji Tianqing. Tianqing! She shouted in surprise and threw herself into Ji Tianqing's arms. She stretched out her arms and tightly hugged his neck. She lowered her head and buried it in Ji Tianqing's chest. The tears in her eyes flowed out uncontrollably. At this moment, she didn't care about the title of empress or the image of a fairy. She tightly hugged Ji Tianqing, who had almost died, and did not want to be separated from him for even a moment. Ji Tianqing's eyes were filled with tenderness. He held Yun Yao's slender waist with one hand and held her head with the other, gently stroking her beautiful hair. Yao Yao, don't cry. I'm fine now. I've said it before, I'll accompany you until we're old, and I'll never abandon you. At this moment, Ji Tianqing's heart was also surging with emotions. Even if there were thousands of words to say, in the end, it only turned into this one oath. Other than this, he couldn't find a more suitable word to describe his current feelings. At this moment, the little black dragon and Qian Yu also came to their senses, and they let out excited cheers as they rushed over to Ji Tianqing. Old Ji! It's great that you're all right. I've long known that our old Ji is immortal. He's either creating a miracle, or he's on the way to creating a miracle. In the past 5 days, the little black dragon and Qian Yu had been grieving and heartbroken. The two of them had been standing guard outside the secret room, not leaving even a single step, waiting for Ji Tianqing's safe return. Even though 5 days had passed and everyone was in despair, they still refused to give up, firmly believing that Ji Tianqing could create a miracle. Now, reality had proven that Ji Tianqing did not disappoint them. Ji Tianqing looked at the little black dragon and Qian Yu with a gentle gaze, revealing a faint smile. Immediately after, Long Yunxiao, Kuan Wu, Ling Yi, and the others all came to their senses. Everyone revealed an excited expression and let out shocked exclamations. Long Yunxiao said with a face full of joy, Tianqing, this lord didn't misjudge you. No matter how dangerous it is, you can always turn danger into safety. Kuan Wu breathed a sigh of relief, nodding with a face full of smiles, Ji Tianqing, you're finally safe. We didn't wait for you in vain. This lord had long guessed that with your ability, how could you fall in this calamity? Ling Yi was also excited, his face flushed red. He waved his fist at Ji Tianqing and shouted excitedly, Junior brother Ji, it's our clan's fortune that you're safe and sound. Everyone was filled with excitement and gratification. They were all in high spirits. Even the demon race's first empress, Fox Ji, was excited. She felt gratified and happy for Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao's love of life and death made her full of gratitude and admiration. However, there was one person who was not happy. Instead, his expression was ugly, shocked and angry. This person was Muron Lingfeng. His eyes widened in shock, staring at Ji Tianqing. He roared angrily in his heart, how could this be? How is this possible? Ji Tianqing, this bastard. How could he not die? How tough is his life? Soon, he realized that not only was Ji Tianqing safe and sound, but his strength and aura had also doubled. He had become even more mysterious. Muron Lingfeng used his spiritual sense to check and realized that Ji Tianqing's strength had increased. He had reached the 6th level of Sky Origin stage. This result made him dumbfounded. He was so shocked that he was dumbfounded. Motherfucker. How is this possible? He suffered the blood-dissipating curse. Not only did he not die, but he also benefited from the disaster and increased his cultivation by 1 level. Is there any justice in this world? What did he do? How could he be so strong? Murong Lingfeng's face turned green. His heart was filled with anger. He was so angry that he could barely speak. When Murong Lingfeng saw Ji Tianqing being surrounded by the crowd, chatting and laughing excitedly, he was so angry that his vision turned black. He couldn't stay any longer. He suppressed his anger and turned around to leave with a dark face. However, at this moment, Ji Tianqing looked at him with a faint smile. He asked, "Master Murong, I vaguely heard you say that you are here to collect my body." Yun Yao, Long Yun Xiao, and the others quieted down. They all turned around to look at Murong Lingfeng with unfriendly eyes. Murong Lingfeng stopped. He didn't say anything with a dark face. Ji Tianqing smiled coldly. He said in a mocking tone, "I am not your father. Why are you collecting my body? Master Murong, you are so filial. You should keep it for your father." Long Yun Xiao, Kuan Wu, and the others were stunned. They couldn't help but laugh out loud. Murong Lingfeng was so angry that he almost fainted. His face turned purple. His chest was heaving up and down as if he was going to spit out a flame of anger. He was so angry that he almost spat out blood. He could only suppress his anger and leave quickly without saying a word. Of course, he was so angry that he was trembling. He staggered as he walked. He looked like a mess. Long Yun Xiao, Kuan Wu, and the others saw Murong Lingfeng leaving in a mess. They burst into laughter again. Chapter 729. Everyone chatted with Ji Tianqing outside the secret chamber for a while before taking their leave one after another. Kuan Wu, Ling Yi Xiong, and Fox Princess left, but Yun Yao and Long Yun Xiao stayed. Ji Tianqing led the two into the study room, closed the door, and started to discuss matters. After the three of them sat down, the study room quieted down, and the atmosphere became solemn. Ji Tianqing said with a serious face, "Although I am out of danger and have successfully removed the curse, this matter is not over yet. I have analyzed this matter before, and I feel that there is something fishy about it. There must be something wrong. Son of Heaven, Yao Yao, tell me the whole story from the beginning to the end." Yun Yao and Long Yun Xiao nodded in agreement. Obviously, they also felt that there was something wrong. Long Yun Xiao started with the conflict between Yun Yao and Ensuan, and narrated the entire story from beginning to end. After Ji Tianqing heard it, he frowned and said with a serious tone, "It seems that the conflict between Yao Yao and the heavenly concubine, the disappearance of the heavenly concubine, and the trap set by the demon king Xue Qianjiang are all related. I suspect that someone is deliberately instigating the relationship between Yao Yao and the heavenly concubine, making them fight each other." Long Yun Xiao frowned and asked with doubt, "If someone is really doing this, what is their purpose?" "Of course it is you." Ji Tianqing stared at Long Yun Xiao and said with a serious tone, "Because you are the key person between the two of them." "Me?" Long Yun Xiao was even more confused. Ji Tianqing did not continue to explain, and said with a calm tone, "We can analyze it in reverse. If Yao Yao and the heavenly concubine completely break off their relationship, who will benefit the most? Who can clearly grasp our movements, and play the role of instigating them at the crucial moment?" Yun Yao frowned and pondered. Hearing his reminder, she suddenly thought of something. Her eyes flashed as she looked at Ji Tianqing beside her and asked, "Tianqing, are you suspecting Lan Huixin?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said calmly, "Ever since we met Lan Huixin and she humbly begged to stay by your side, I've been suspicious of her. She was originally the #1 genius beauty of the Long Heaven domain. Not only could she marry into a rich and powerful family as a madam, she could also cultivate diligently and become a famous martial arts genius. But why would she bow and scrape to stay by your side, even willing to be a maid? I don't believe that she has no ulterior motives. Yunyaoan nodded her head in agreement and said, Lan Huixin has always dreamed of becoming a heavenly consort, a sparrow flying to a branch to become a phoenix. If the heavenly concubine and I were to completely break off our relationship, of course, it would be most beneficial to her. Perhaps she would be able to take advantage of the situation. Hearing this, Long Yunshao hurriedly waved his hand and explained solemnly, impossible. Even if I don't marry for the rest of my life, I would never take a fancy to Lan Huixin. Ji Tianqing and Yunyao ignored him and didn't react at all. Yunyao continued, moreover, the initial cause of this matter was Lan Huixin telling me that the emperor visited Yunyao Palace several times and had something important to discuss with me. After I went to Yunshao Palace, I ran into the heavenly consort and Suan and had a conflict with her. Long Yunshao suddenly understood and nodded repeatedly, so that's how it is. No wonder Yao Yao suddenly came to find me that day. I thought she had something important to discuss with me. I didn't expect that it was actually Lan Huixin who deliberately instigated things. It seems that the heavenly consort didn't eavesdrop on our conversation in the side hall that day by chance. It's very likely that she was instigated by Lan Huixin. After the three confronted each other and analyzed the situation, the truth was immediately revealed. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment, then said in a solemn tone, Lan Huixin is so scheming, sinister, and despicable. She must be eliminated. She can't be allowed to continue staying in Yunyao Palace. However, these are only our speculations. We don't have any real evidence, so we can't convict her. Yunyao also looked angry and said in a cold voice, if it weren't for Lan Huixin's instigation, there wouldn't be so many twists and turns. The heavenly consort and I wouldn't be in prison, and Tianqing wouldn't have almost lost his life. I treated her like a sister, but I didn't expect her to be so vicious. We must get rid of her. Otherwise, it will be difficult to dispel the hatred in my heart. To Yunyao, Ji Tianqing was the most important person. It was fine if Lan Huixin tricked her, but she almost killed Ji Tianqing. This was an unforgivable capital crime. Long Yunshao was also filled with anger, and a trace of killing intent appeared in his heart. But without evidence, he couldn't convict Lan Huixin. He could only think hard about how to find evidence. The three of them were silent for a while. Then, Ji Tianqing suddenly thought of something and smiled. I got it. I have a way to make Lan Huixin give herself away very soon. Long Yunshao and Yunyao's eyes suddenly lit up, and they looked at him expectantly. What is it? Ji Tianqing revealed a playful smile and said in a low voice, Lan Huixin only instigated a dispute between Yao Yao and the heavenly consort. She didn't have the right to leave the monarch mansion without permission. But later, when the heavenly consort left the monarch mansion, she was immediately knocked out and kidnapped by a mysterious powerhouse. This means that Lan Huixin must have an accomplice. It's very likely that the accomplice is that mysterious powerhouse. Didn't Yao Yao just say that she suspects that the mysterious powerhouse is Morong Lingfeng? If that's the case, we can do this. Ji Tianqing told Long Yunshao and Yunyao about his idea. The two of them immediately nodded in agreement and looked expectant. Good. Let's do it. This is a good idea. It will definitely make her reveal her flaws. Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. If that's the case, then let's not delay any longer. We'll take action immediately to avoid any unexpected changes. Yunyao and Long Yunshao nodded in agreement. They immediately followed him out of the study and began to take action. After Yunyao left Tianqing Palace alone, she rushed back to Yunyao Palace as fast as lightning. She had just sat down to rest when Lan Huixin walked into the hall with a bowl of spiritual tea. Sister Yun, you're finally back. Please have some tea. Yunyao calmly picked up the teacup and tasted the tea silently. Lan Huixin stood aside and pretended to be concerned. Sister Yun, you've been in Tianqing Palace for 5 days. You've made me worried sick. By the way, how's young Master Ji? Has he broken the curse? Yunyao nodded and said in a relieved tone, fortunately, Tianqing is extraordinary. He's already out of danger. Lan Huixin was a little disappointed, but she still put on a pleasantly surprised expression. That's great. Young Master Ji is indeed lucky. Sister Yun, you can finally rest assured. Yunyao smiled and continued, not only has Tianqing woken up, but we've also found a useful clue. We already know who kidnapped the heavenly consort. Lan Huixin was shocked when she heard this news. However, she didn't show it on her face. She pretended to be curious and asked, Sister Yun, who did you find? Chapter 730. Yunyao was still calm and indifferent. She didn't have her guard up against Lan Huixin at all. When she heard Lan Huixin's question, she subconsciously said, that reckless guy is actually Murong. Speaking up to hear, Yunyao suddenly realized something and hurriedly shut her mouth. However, when Lan Huixin heard the word Murong, her body suddenly trembled. A strange look flashed in her eyes. At this moment, Yunyao took out a square black iron box from her sleeve. The iron box was made of cold cloud iron. It was abnormally strong and tough. Moreover, the surface of the box was engraved with array patterns and patterns. It was tightly sealed. According to that clue, we found a piece of evidence. This piece of evidence can pin down the mastermind. We have to continue our investigation in the next 2 days. When we find more clues, we can present this piece of evidence to the imperial court. That bastard dared to kidnap the heavenly consort. This is a capital offense that will result in the execution of his entire family. When the time comes, not only will that bastard be executed by the imperial court, but even his family will be severely punished by the imperial court. Yunyao held the fine iron box with both hands as she spoke in a cold and stern tone. Her eyes were filled with anticipation. Lan Huixin quickly nodded in agreement. She also said angrily, Sister Yun is right. That guy really deserves to die. He dared to offend the imperial court. He should be severely punished. After she finished speaking, she secretly looked at the box and memorized its shape and patterns. Yunyao held the iron box and walked to the bedroom. She calmly ordered, All right, Huixin, you can leave first. I want to rest for a while. Yes. Lan Huixin bowed and quickly left the room. However, after she left the room, she hid by the window and secretly peeked at the scene in the room. Yunyao held the iron box and walked to the innermost side of the room. She pressed a mechanism on the wall and opened the secret compartment protected by the array. The secret compartment was embedded in the wall. It was almost impossible to see from the outside. It was very hidden. Yunyao carefully put the evidence into the secret compartment. Then, she sat on the bed and meditated to rest. Seeing this scene, Lan Huixin frowned and quietly turned to leave. She remained calm and collected as she quietly left Yunyao Palace. Riding a spirit bird, she flew into the sky at lightning speed. About an hour later, the spirit beast flying bird landed outside the gate of the towering Wind Palace. After exchanging a few words with the guard, she was led through the gate by the guard. Half an hour later, she met Murong Lingfeng in a secret room filled with spiritual qi. Murong Lingfeng's expression was very cold. There was still anger in his eyes, and the anger in his heart had not dissipated. Obviously, Ji Tianqing's previous words had angered him too much. Seeing Murong Lingfeng enter the secret room, Lan Huixin quickly bowed and greeted him respectfully, Young Master Murong. Murong Lingfeng walked to the throne in the secret room and sat down. He asked with an expressionless face, Why have you come to find this young master? Lan Huixin did not dare to talk nonsense. She quickly said, "Young master, Yunyao just returned to her residence and told me that she found some clues about who kidnapped the heavenly concubine." She had inadvertently mentioned the word Muro, but she didn't say anything else. Also, she found a piece of evidence. Lan Huixin told her everything that had happened before and what Yunyao had said, word for word. After Murong Lingfeng heard it, he immediately frowned. His eyes became gloomy and cold. He pondered silently and thought to himself, they actually found evidence. And they have to hand it over to the imperial court. How is this possible? This young master is very meticulous. I will never leave any evidence behind. However, this matter is very important. There must not be any mistakes or accidents. Could it be, when this young master was fighting with that demon Xue Qian Jiang, I accidentally left some evidence behind? It's very likely. Only when this young master was fighting with Xue Qian Jiang in Yanhui Mountain would there be a mistake. Thinking of this, Murong Lingfeng's mood became more and more irritable. Yunyao, that bitch. And Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao, those two bastards, they will all die a horrible death. If they really found the evidence and handed it to the imperial court, not only will this young master be executed by the imperial court, even the Murong family will suffer. No way. This young master will not let them succeed. Murong Lingfeng thought for a moment and immediately made up his mind. He ordered coldly, Lan Huixin, after you return to Yunyao Palace, you must find a way to steal that evidence. If that evidence is sent to the imperial court, we will all die. Do you understand? Lan Huixin's eyes suddenly turned cold. She nodded solemnly and said, "Yes, young master. Go." Murong Lingfeng waved his hand and gestured for her to leave. Lan Huixin bowed and left the secret room. After an hour, Lan Huixin rode on the flying bird and returned to Yunyao Palace. At this time, it was already evening. The sky was dark, and lights were lit everywhere in Yunyao Palace. Lan Huixin went to the kitchen and brought a bowl of spiritual porridge. She pretended to bring the porridge to Yunyao. She took this opportunity to enter Yunyao's room. However, when she entered the room, she found that there was no one in the room. Yunyao was not there. Lan Huixin was full of doubts. She found an excuse and asked a maid about Yunyao's whereabouts. The maid told her that an hour ago, Yunyao seemed to have something urgent and rushed to Tianqing Palace. Lan Huixin was secretly delighted when she heard this news. She quietly sneaked into Yunyao's room and found the secret compartment in the innermost corner of the room. Although the secret compartment had a protective array, this array was not a high-level one. It was very common in many secret rooms and rooms in Yunyao Palace. Lan Huixin had already studied this kind of array. It only took her 100 breaths to crack the array. With a soft click, she finally opened the secret compartment. There was a black fine iron box lying quietly in the secret compartment. It was the one that Yunyao had put in earlier. Lan Huixin's pretty face revealed a smug sneer. She quickly reached out and took out the fine iron box. However, at this moment, the dim room suddenly lit up with bright lights. The door of the room also opened with a creak. 3 figures appeared at the door. Lan Huixin was immediately shocked. She subconsciously turned her head to look at the door and saw that the 3 people were Yunyao, Ji Tianqing, and Long Yunxiao. The 3 of them were staring at her coldly with mocking sneers on their faces. Lan Huixin's face instantly turned pale when she saw this scene. She immediately understood. This was Yunyao's scheme. She had fallen into a trap. Her body instantly turned cold. Her heart felt as if it had fallen into an ice cellar. She froze on the spot, not knowing what to do. Lan Huixin, what else do you want to say now? You walked right into the trap so quickly. I really overestimated you. Chapter 731. Lan Huixin understood everything, but it was too late. She knew very well that since Yun Yao had deliberately set her up, she must have suspected her for a long time. Now that she had been caught red-handed, it was useless no matter how she quibbled. When Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and Long Yunxiao stepped into the room, she immediately knelt on the ground and put on a pitiful look, crying and begging. "Sister Yun Yao, it's not what you think. I didn't do it on purpose. Please, I beg you, for the sake of my hard work in serving you." Lan Huixin cried and begged for mercy, but she was secretly looking for a way to escape. She quietly put the fine iron box into her sleeve, trying to hide it in her space ring. Although her little movements couldn't be hidden from Ji Tianqing and the other two's eyes, they ignored her. However, the three of them turned a blind eye and allowed Lan Huixin to quietly hide the iron box in her spatial ring. The next moment, Lan Huixin, who was still kowtowing and begging for mercy, suddenly burst out with all her strength and rushed to the window as fast as the wind. She jumped and burst out with a dazzling true essence brilliance, wanting to break through the window and escape the room. However, Ji Tianqing had already expected her to escape. He waved his hand as fast as lightning and struck out a giant golden palm. Swoosh! The giant golden palm instantly grabbed Lan Huixin and pulled her back to Ji Tianqing. Lan Huixin's expression changed drastically. She was full of anxiety and anger. She urged her true essence to struggle desperately. Ji Tianqing sneered and crushed Lan Huixin's protective true essence with the giant golden palm. Moreover, an incomparably violent true essence gushed out of his palm and rushed into Lan Huixin's body crazily, destroying her essence core and meridians. Lan Huixin immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Her true essence quickly leaked out and lit up with true essence brilliance. In the blink of an eye, Lan Huixin's cultivation was crippled by Ji Tianqing and she became a weak ordinary person. Ji Tianqing casually threw her to the ground, making a muffled plop sound. Lan Huixin lay on the ground with her face full of blood. Her whole body twitched in pain and she let out a heart-wrenching scream. "Ah! Ji Tianqing! You actually crippled my cultivation. You vicious bastard, I curse you. You'll die a horrible death." Lan Huixin was frightened and desperate. She cursed in pain and anger, her voice sharp and ear-piercing. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao did not pity her at all when they saw her disheveled appearance with blood all over her face. Yun Yao stared at her coldly and shouted with an icy expression, "Lan Huixin! Back then, you claimed that you were homeless and begged me to stay. I didn't expect you to be so sinister and despicable. You purposely instigated a conflict between me and the heavenly concubine and almost caused Tianqing, me, and the heavenly concubine to lose our lives. What right does a venomous woman like you have to call others venomous? Tianqing only crippled your cultivation and didn't kill you. That's already the greatest mercy he could have shown you." Lan Huixin curled up on the ground and suddenly sneered as if she had lost her mind. She ignored the blood that kept coming out of her mouth and nose. "Ha ha ha. I'm homeless. Begging? Don't you know why I begged so humbly and tried so hard to stay? You can all pursue your loved ones. Can't I do the same? Why is it that in order to pursue your loved ones, you are the ones who are deeply moved, but I'm called a vicious woman? Why? I can't accept this." Lan Huixin's hair was disheveled and her face was covered in blood. Her voice was filled with grief, indignation, and excitement. Seeing her like this, Long Yunxiao said expressionlessly in a deep voice, "You're crazy. You don't know what love is at all." When he saw the blood on Lan Huixin's face on the ground, he frowned and said, "Don't let your blood dirty Yao Yao's room." As he spoke, he waved his hand and sent out a beam of light to clean up the blood on the floor. Then, Long Yunxiao carried Lan Huixin out of the room and brought her to a secret room. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao followed into the secret room and the three of them began to interrogate Lan Huixin. Yun Yao asked in a cold voice, "Lan Huixin, it's useless for you to explain anything now. Tell us the truth. Who ordered you to do this? Long Yunxiao said in a dignified voice, if you confess honestly, I can spare your life. Otherwise, not only will I kill you, but I will also exterminate your whole family. Hearing their words, Lan Huixin was stunned for a moment and then sneered contemptuously. Ha ha ha. Haven't you already found out who the mastermind is? Why are you interrogating me? Just go and catch him. Long Yunxiao and Yunyao's expressions suddenly froze, and their eyes darkened. Ji Tianqing looked at Lan Huixin indifferently and said calmly, when I crippled your cultivation just now, I noticed that there was an extremely strong poison hidden in your body. If I'm not wrong, the poison was planted by the mastermind, right? Lan Huixin, if you were forced, you should confess. Only in this way can you reduce your crime and beg the imperial court to be lenient with you. Ji Tianqing's words obviously hit the nail on the head and made Lan Huixin's body tremble. However, she pursed her lips tightly and remained silent, resolutely refusing to confess. She was silently calculating in her heart, whether it's Murong Lingfeng, the son of heaven, Ji Tianqing, or Yun Yao, they are all high and mighty princes. They treat human lives like grass. There's no difference. If I don't confess, Ji Tianqing and the rest won't kill me. They even want me to confess to Murong Lingfeng. Murong Lingfeng will also think of a way to save me. He won't let me confess to him. However, if I confess, I will no longer have any value. Not only will Ji Tianqing and the rest kill me, but Murong Lingfeng will also use the heart-devouring poison pill to kill me. Thinking of this, Lan Huixin made up her mind. She would rather die than reveal any information. No matter how Ji Tianqing and the rest interrogated her or even tortured her, she clenched her teeth and refused to reveal anything. In desperation, the three of them could only temporarily give up the interrogation and lock her up in the secret chamber. Of course, Long Yunxiao was full of anger and made a decision in front of Lan Huixin. Lan Huixin, since you are so stubborn, don't blame me for being ruthless. I will immediately send an order to the Changtian region master to kill your entire Lan family. If you don't want to implicate your family, confess honestly when you have thought it through. As the saying goes, the Son of Heaven keeps his word. Once this order was passed down, it would be impossible to change it. The Lan family would definitely be killed. Long Yunxiao had originally thought that Lan Huixin would definitely be worried and might confess because of this. However, he didn't expect Lan Huixin to have no reaction to this. She was so selfish and cold that she didn't care about the life and death of her family. In this way, Long Yunxiao couldn't do anything for the time being. After Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and Long Yunxiao left the secret chamber, they entered the study room together. Chapter 732. Unknowingly, 2 days had passed. In these 2 days, Ji Tianqing, Long Yunxiao, and Yun Yao had tried several methods, but they still couldn't get Lan Huixin to confess. Lan Huixin had endured several kinds of torture. She was tortured until she was covered in bruises and dirty blood. She looked extremely miserable. However, her will was firm. She wouldn't say anything even if she died. In the end, Ji Tianqing and the other two were at their wits' end. Long Yunxiao then thought of a way. He decided to ask Divine Master Qian Yi to perform the soul-searching secret technique to search Lan Huixin's soul and memory to find evidence. However, this method was cruel and vicious. It wasn't an ordinary method. Ordinary people wouldn't use it easily. The soul-searching secret technique also had a high failure rate. Once it failed, not only would they not get any clues, but Lan Huixin would also die. Late at night, Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and Long Yunxiao finally made a decision after weighing the pros and cons in the study room. Early the next morning, Long Yunxiao would look for Divine Master Qian Yi and ask him to perform the soul-searching secret technique. After the meeting, Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao got up and left Yun Yao Palace to return to their respective cave residences. Yun Yao had been too busy these days. She hadn't rested at all. Finally, she was physically and mentally exhausted. After Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao left, she also went back to her room to rest. Of course, she had already instructed the palace guards to guard the secret room where Lan Huixin was locked up. Although Lan Huixin's cultivation had been destroyed, Yun Yao was still very careful. She arranged for 4 bodyguard commanders to guard outside the secret room at all times to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Yun Yao Palace stood quietly on the mountain peak in the middle of the night. It was sleeping in the darkness. The palace was lit up with scattered lights. Not only were there guards guarding the roads and doors, but there were also a few groups of guards patrolling. Suddenly, in the dark night sky outside the palace, a black shadow silently flew over. Swoosh! This figure was as agile as a fallen leaf, as if it had merged with the darkness. It landed lightly in the woods east of Yunyao Palace without alerting anyone. This person was dressed in black and had a veil covering her face. She looked tall and slim, like a young woman. However, his exposed eyes were as deep as the night sky. They were not as gentle and beautiful as a woman's, but contained a cold killing intent. He hid in the forest filled with towering trees and observed quietly for a while before taking out a pair of dark gold scissors that were more than half a meter long. The simple golden scissors exuded a mysterious and powerful aura. Clearly, it was a soul-class magic treasure that surpassed the heavenly yuan level. This item was called the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors. According to legend, it was refined from the bones of a golden flood dragon. It possessed an incomparably powerful ability to break spells, as well as a terrifying destructive power. The man in black stared at the walls of Yunyao Palace with burning eyes. After observing for a while, he saw the lines and key points of the defensive formation. He held the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors with both hands, silently urging his majestic true essence, causing the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors to shine with a dazzling golden light. Swish! He held the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors and fiercely cut at the defensive formation. Instantly, the defensive formation was broken, and a huge gap was cut out. After that, he put away the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors, and his figure flashed through the gap and entered the defensive formation. His body merged with the darkness as he silently flipped over the walls, passed through the courtyards and palaces, and crept towards the center of Yunyao Palace. The man in black moved stealthily in Yunyao Palace. Obviously, he was familiar with the layout of Yunyao Palace. Moreover, his strength was extremely powerful. He was at least at the 7th level of the Heavenly Yuan stage, so he could easily avoid the detection of all the guards. After about an hour, the man in black entered the depths of the palace and crept into a dark tunnel underground. The tunnel was 100 meters long, and at the end of it was the secret room where Lan Huixin was locked up. The stone door of the secret room was tightly shut, and there were 4 guard commanders guarding outside the door. They were as motionless as stone statues. These 4 guard commanders were all elites with strength at the 9th level of the Origin Core stage. They were the strongest powerhouses below the Heavenly Yuan stage. In the entire Yunyao Palace, other than Yunyao, they were the strongest powerhouses. However, the man in black did not take these 4 guard commanders seriously at all. He concealed his aura and crept through the tunnel silently, approaching the 4 guard commanders quietly. When the guard commanders sensed that something was wrong, they turned their heads to look at the man in black. The man in black was less than 10 meters away from them. "Who's that? How dare you trespass into Yunyao Palace? You're seeking death." The 4 guard commanders were instantly awakened. They drew their swords and sabers and were about to attack immediately. However, the man in black waved his hand and shot out a 5-colored spirit light that enveloped half of the tunnel. The 5-colored spirit light immediately formed a formation, blocking the sound and true origin waves in the formation. No matter how the man in black and the guard commanders fought, no matter how loud the noise was, it would not alert the people outside. Swoosh! When the guard commanders brandished their swords and sabers to attack, the man in black hurriedly took out the golden WIRM scissors and urged his vast true origin to fiercely scissor the two guards that charged at him. Along with the sound of "kacha kacha," the two guards' swords and bodies were cut into two by the golden serpent scissors on the spot. The two guards were cut in half at the waist. Their corpses fell to the ground and sprayed out a large amount of blood. Colorful internal organs and intestines flowed out as well. Such a bloody and cruel scene instantly caused the other two guard commanders to be stunned, and they were terrified to the point their faces went pale. The two of them hadn't recovered from their shock when they saw a golden light flash before their eyes, and then their necks were cut off on the spot by the golden WIRM scissors. The man in black killed the four guard commanders swiftly like a bolt of lightning, then hurriedly rushed to the door of the secret room. He didn't waste any time. He held the golden WIRM scissors in his hand and slashed at the secret room's stone door. The secret room's defensive formation and thick and solid stone door were unable to withstand the might of the golden WIRM scissors, and an enormous hole was instantly cut open. The formation collapsed and the stone door shattered. The man in black stepped into the secret room. In the gloomy and cold secret room, Lan Huixin was tied to the wall by a few iron chains. Her hair was disheveled, and her body was covered in blood. She lowered her head dispiritedly and silently gasped for breath. Hearing the sound of the stone door shattering, she was instantly jolted awake. She opened her eyes and looked at the man in black. When she saw the man in black's appearance, her dim and despairing eyes immediately surged with a trace of pleasant surprise and anticipation. "Young Master Murong, you've really come to save me." Lan Huixin's emotions were extremely excited, as if she had seen the hope of escaping with her life. The man in black reached out and took off his mask, revealing a face as beautiful as a beauty's. It was indeed Murong Lingfeng. He held the golden WIRM scissors and cut the iron chains that bound Lan Huixin in a few moves. He asked expressionlessly, "Have you obtained the evidence?" Lan Huixin regained her freedom. She couldn't be bothered to treat her wounds as she hurriedly took out a fine iron box from her space ring. "I've obtained the item, but they still don't seem to be certain that it's you." Before she could finish speaking, the fine iron box in her hand was snatched away by Murong Lingfeng. Chapter 733. Bang! Lan Huixin was sent flying by Murong Lingfeng's palm and crashed into the wall of the secret chamber. She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. She fell to the ground and twitched in pain. Murong Lingfeng's palm wasn't very powerful and didn't kill her on the spot. However, this palm had ignited the hundreds of poisons hidden in her body, causing them to erupt and frantically corrode her internal organs, flesh, blood, and bone marrow. The extreme pain caused by the hundreds of poisons immediately made Lan Huixin curl up like a shrimp. She trembled and black poisonous blood kept flowing out of her mouth and nose. However, she widened her eyes in disbelief and glared at Murong Lingfeng with resentment. She stuttered, "Why did you do this to me?" She didn't understand. She had endured all kinds of torture and didn't expose Murong Lingfeng. Why did Murong Lingfeng still want to kill her? Murong Lingfeng put away the fine iron box and looked at her expressionlessly. He said in an indifferent tone, "You know something you shouldn't know. Only death can shut your mouth forever. Moreover, you have no more value. Of course, you should die." After saying that, Murong Lingfeng put on his mask again and turned to leave the secret chamber. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the darkness like a ghost. The secret chamber quieted down and only Lan Huixin was left. She stared at the door of the secret chamber with bloodshot eyes. Her face was as malevolent as a demon and black blood kept flowing out of her mouth and nose. At this moment, her heart was filled with regret, and her entire body was emitting resentment. She hated herself for provoking Murong Lingfeng. This person was simply a demon. She regretted even more that she kept the secret and didn't expose Murong Lingfeng. In the end, she ended up like this. However, no matter how much she regretted, it was useless. The hundreds of poisons had completely erupted and quickly corroded her body. Her flesh and blood had turned into pus. After a short 100 breaths, Lan Huixin's body had completely corroded and turned into a pool of black blood. The number one genius of the Long Sky region, a peerless beauty whose name spread far and wide, had silently died like this. Not even her bones were left behind. At the same time, Murong Lingfeng had quietly left Yunyao Palace. He flew across the night sky as fast as lightning and quickly returned to Ling Feng Palace. When he returned to his room, he didn't even have time to change out of his black night suit. He couldn't wait to take out the iron box. This young master wants to see what evidence those three bitches have found to actually link it to this young master. Murong Lingfeng coldly snorted, filled with anger. He used the golden flood dragon scissors to break the formation and lock of the fine iron box. When he opened the box, he saw that it was empty except for a small piece of paper. He picked up the piece of paper and saw a line of bold and powerful words written on it. Murong Lingfeng, wash your neck and wait for death. Seeing this, Murong Lingfeng was so angry that his face turned ashen. He grabbed the fine iron box and threw it to the ground. Bastard! Too arrogant. This little bastard Ji Tianxing, this young master will definitely tear him to shreds. Previously, he had thought that Ji Tianxing and the others might have really found some evidence. In the end, this was just a trap set up by Ji Tianxing and the other two. Murong Lingfeng had been too cautious and had revealed a flaw which had even cost Lan Huixin's life. In the end, the so-called evidence was just a piece of paper, and it was a blatant provocation to him. Murong Lingfeng had always been arrogant and conceited. How could he endure such humiliation? He was so angry that his hands were trembling, and his eyes were filled with a dark red murderous aura. He couldn't wait to kill his way into Tianqing Palace and tear Ji Tianxing to shreds. However, he could only think about it. In the wee hours of the morning, the night was dark. Ji Tianxing was meditating in his room, consolidating his martial arts realm. Suddenly, a guard rushed to the door and reported to him. Master, Yunyao Palace just sent news. Something happened tonight. Miss Yunyao wants you to go over immediately. Ji Tianxing was instantly awakened. He frowned with a serious expression. Something happened at Yunyao Palace. Could it be Lan Huixin? He realized that something was wrong and immediately rushed out of Tianqing Palace. He rushed to Yunyao Palace as fast as a flash of light. Not long after, he arrived at Yunyao Palace and hurried to the depths of the palace. When he entered the dark underground passage, he saw that the ground at the end of the passage was covered in blood and internal organs. There were also a few horrifying corpses. Yunyao and Long Yunxiao were standing at the door of the secret chamber, looking around with gloomy expressions. Ji Tianxing hurried over and asked in a heavy tone, "What happened?" Yunyao answered with anger in her eyes, 2 hours ago, someone snuck into the palace and killed 4 of the guard commanders. They also killed Lan Huixin. What? Someone actually snuck into Yunyao Palace? Ji Tianxing frowned fiercely. His heart was surging with anger. Especially when he saw the corpses of the 4 guard commanders, he was even more furious. Long Yunxiao's face was also very gloomy. He said in a low voice, "The corpses of the 4 guard commanders are very horrible." Lan Huixin died even more miserably. As he said that, he pointed to the inside of the secret chamber. Ji Tianxing stepped into the secret chamber and saw that the iron chain on the wall had been broken. Lan Huixin's body was not in the secret chamber. However, there was a puddle of black blood on the ground that was about to solidify into black ashes. He looked at it and realized that it was the filthy blood left behind after Lan Huixin's corpse had decayed. It was highly toxic. Damn it! Murong Lingfeng actually used such a cruel method to kill Lan Huixin. What's the difference between him and the devil? Yunyao also nodded and said in a heavy tone, "That's right. Lan Huixin was despicable and sinister. She deserved to die. However, Lan Huixin refused to confess. Murong Lingfeng still snuck into my palace and cruelly poisoned Lan Huixin to death. Murong Lingfeng's method is so vicious and ruthless. It makes one's hair stand on end. Long Yunxiao frowned, shook his head and sighed, it's a pity that Lan Huixin is dead. This clue is also broken. It's very difficult for us to find any evidence to prove that Murong Lingfeng is the mastermind behind this. Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and asked Long Yunxiao, Son of Heaven, have you investigated the Yan Hui mountain? Murong Lingfeng and the demon king Xue Qianjiang fought there. Perhaps they left some clues. Long Yunxiao shook his head again and said in a low voice, I've already thought of this. A few days ago, I sent people to investigate carefully. Unfortunately, Murong Lingfeng was too cautious and meticulous. He didn't leave any evidence at all. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing and Yunyao were silent. The matter had reached a deadlock. They couldn't continue investigating. Although the three of them knew that the mastermind behind this was Murong Lingfeng, they had no evidence and couldn't convict Murong Lingfeng. After a moment, the three of them left the underground secret chamber and returned to the study. Long Yunxiao chatted with the two of them for a while and then left. Yunyao pulled Ji Tianqing and said in a gentle tone, Tianqing, we can only put this matter of Murong Lingfeng aside for now. We have to be more careful in the future. Chapter 734. Originally, Ji Tianqing had just broken through to the 6th level of the Sky Origin stage and wanted to cultivate in seclusion for a few more days to consolidate his cultivation. However, since Yunyao had brought this up, he naturally couldn't refuse. Moreover, Yunyao had said a long time ago that her parents had invited Ji Tianqing to stay at Cloud Soul Palace for a few days. He couldn't refuse such a great offer, so of course he nodded and said, all right, then I'll go back and make some preparations. We'll depart tomorrow morning. Yunyao chatted with him for a while and gave him a few more instructions before letting him leave Yunyao Palace. After Ji Tianqing returned to Tianqing Palace, he made the necessary arrangements. He found the steward and the commander of the guards and gave them instructions. After all, he would be delayed for at least half a month on this trip to Cloud Soul Palace. After he finished his preparations, 4 hours had passed. The sun rose, and a new day had arrived. Ji Tianqing brought the little black dragon and Qian Yu to Yunyao Palace. After he met up with Yunyao, they rode on the spirit crane and left the monarch palace together, heading for Cloud Soul Palace. During the journey, Ji Tianqing and Yunyao stood side by side on the spirit crane's back, intimately leaning against each other. The two of them were alone, flying between the blue sky and white clouds. Only then did their hearts truly calm down. Too many things have happened in the past half a month. Ji Tianqing wrapped his arm around Yunyao's waist and held her in his arms. He said gently, Yao Yao, you've suffered a lot during this period of time. You've been through many life and death situations, and you haven't had a good rest. Yunyao gently shook her head and said sincerely, I didn't suffer much, and it wasn't that dangerous. However, Tianqing, you took the blood dissipation curse for me and almost lost your life. You were the one who was truly in danger. I've already sent a message back to Cloud Soul Palace and told my parents about this. My mother is very worried about you. My father said that when you go to Cloud Soul Palace, he must thank you personally. Ji Tianqing revealed a gratified smile and whispered into Yunyao's ear, we'll be a family soon. Why are you still so polite? Yunyao's expression did not change, but her crystal-clear earlobes were covered with a layer of red. It was obvious that she was embarrassed. On the evening of the 3rd day, Ji Tianqing and Yunyao finally arrived at Cloud Soul Palace. Thousands of feet high in the sky, the boundless sea of clouds was illuminated by the setting sun. The Cloud Spirit Palace stood in the middle of the sea of clouds. It was majestic and dignified. Under the setting sun, it emitted thousands of rays of light. This was Ji Tianqing's third visit to Cloud Soul Palace. However, every time he saw the magnificent Cloud Spirit Palace, he would be shocked by its majestic aura. Not long after, the spirit crane landed on the square outside of Cloud Spirit Palace. The floor was paved with golden bricks. It reflected the sunlight as usual, and the golden light was dazzling. When the two of them landed on the square, the dozen or so disciples of the Yun family who were practicing their swordsmanship on the square immediately stopped and bowed respectfully to the two of them. "Greetings, Miss." "Greetings, Lord Ji." The last time Ji Tianqing came to Cloud Soul Palace, he was the genius of the Thearka's son, the #1 genius of the human race, and the Tianqian territory lord. He was honorable and dazzling. The disciples of the Yun family basically remembered his name and appearance. They were very respectful and worshipped him. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly to the disciples. He walked side by side with Yun Yao across the square and toward the palace gate. The dozen or so young disciples all stared at the two of them as they walked up the stairs. Until the two of them stepped onto the green jade steps and entered Cloud Soul Palace, the disciples were still discussing. Their eyes were filled with admiration and yearning. After Yun Yao led Ji Tianqing into Cloud Soul Palace, she arranged a small courtyard for him so that he could rest temporarily. When night fell, Yun Yao changed into an elegant and luxurious dress. Then, she went to find Ji Tianqing to attend the banquet together. Tonight's banquet was a simple family banquet. Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu had specially set up a banquet in the side hall to welcome Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao. Ji Tianqing was still wearing a white robe. Although his attire was simple, he exuded confidence and vigor. It was admirable. When the two of them entered the side hall, Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu, who were sitting on the main seats, immediately looked toward the entrance. Yun Yao was wearing an icy blue dress. She was like a fairy who had walked out of a world of ice and snow. She was cold and beautiful, and her aura was noble and holy. On the other hand, Ji Tianqing was handsome and handsome. He was wearing a white robe, which made him look even more handsome and elegant. He and Yun Yao walked hand in hand, and they really complemented each other. A talented man and a beautiful woman, a perfect match made in heaven. At that moment, not only did Yun Zhongqi reveal a gratified smile, but he even had the illusion that he was witnessing his daughter's wedding with Ji Tianqing. Even Bailey Ningsu, who had a neutral attitude before, was stunned by Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing's elegance. She suddenly felt that only when Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing were together, they had a natural sense of intimacy and perfection. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao walked to the middle of the hall and greeted Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu. Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu quickly smiled and nodded, indicating that the two of them should stop being so courteous. In addition to the four of them, there was another person in the hall. It was Yun Yao's cousin, Zhu Fifan. Zhu Fifan's parents died when he was young. He had been living with his aunt, Bailey Ningsu, in the Cloud Spirit Palace for more than 20 years. Bailey Ningsu treated him like her own son. She took care of him as if he was her own son. When Ji Tianqing came to the Cloud Spirit Palace last time, Zhu Fifan happened to be out on some business, so he didn't meet him. This was the first time they met. Bailey Ningsu introduced them to each other. Ji Tianqing and Zhu Fifan cupped their hands and greeted him. It could be said that they got to know each other. Zhu Fifan was dressed luxuriously. He had a kind face and was as gentle as jade. He was a gentleman with an elegant demeanor. His speech and actions were quite well-mannered. When he talked to Ji Tianqing, he also smiled. He was like a spring breeze and left a good impression on Ji Tianqing. After the two of them chatted for a while, Yun Zhongqi asked everyone to sit down. After a while, the family banquet began. The maids came in one after another. They brought all kinds of delicious dishes and several kinds of wine. Although there were only a dozen dishes in the banquet, all of them were the best in the world. While everyone was enjoying the delicious food and wine, they chatted from time to time. The atmosphere was very harmonious. Ji Tianqing could also feel that Yun Zhongqi was treating him with more and more importance. Even Bailey Ningsu's impression of him improved greatly. She seemed to be more amiable and close to him. After an hour, the banquet ended. Everyone was about to leave after eating and drinking. Bailey Ningsu left first with Yun Yao. The mother and daughter wanted to have a chat. Yun Zhongqi looked at Ji Tianqing and said with a kind face, "Tianqing, do you mind taking a walk with me?" Ji Tianqing knew that Yun Zhongqi must have something to say to him. So, he smiled and nodded. "How can I, Tianqing, refuse your invitation?" Chapter 735. Yun Zhongqi led Ji Tianqing out of the side hall and ascended to the second floor of the palace. The last time Ji Tianqing had come to Cloud Soul Palace, Yun Zhongqi had taken him to the Nebula Pagoda. The two of them had a secret discussion in the pagoda and decided on a plan to work together. What they discussed was confidential. Tonight, Yun Zhongqi had taken him to the second floor of the palace and stood in the hallway to admire the night scenery. From this, Ji Tianqing immediately guessed that what Yun Zhongqi was going to talk about wasn't anything confidential. The second floor of the palace was completely silent. The hallway was empty, and there was no one else besides the two of them. Yun Zhongqi stood in the hallway with his hands behind his back and calmly looked at the sea of clouds in front of him. Ji Tianqing stood beside him and looked at the sea of clouds in front of him, admiring the beautiful starry sky. The two of them were silent for a while before Yun Zhongqi finally opened his mouth and said in a serious tone, "Tianqing, I already know that you took the blood dissipation curse on Yao Yao's behalf." The blood dissipation curse was extremely vicious. Even if I did it myself, I wouldn't have been able to dispel it. For this matter, Uncle wants to thank you properly. Thank you for saving Yao Yao's life. Ji Tianqing shook his head and smiled. Since Yao Yao and I love each other, this isn't just a verbal promise. I will hold her hand until we grow old and use all my strength to protect her. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I won't hesitate. Yun Zhongqi turned his head to look at him and said in a gratified tone, "If anyone else had said this, I definitely wouldn't have believed them. However, Tianqing, you've already done this, so how can I not believe you? Yao Yao is indeed a good judge of character. She didn't misjudge you. You are indeed worthy of being entrusted to her for the rest of her life. For a girl, to have someone protect her wholeheartedly and share life and death with her is the greatest blessing. In the future, I can entrust Yao Yao to you, so I can be completely at ease." Last time, when Yun Zhongqi had spoken to Ji Tianqing, he had always referred to himself as "this lord." Tonight, he had changed his title to "uncle." Ji Tianqing knew that this meant that Yun Zhongqi's attitude towards him had improved. Furthermore, Yun Zhongqi's words made it clear that he was treating him like a son-in-law. Ji Tianqing was gratified, but he didn't say anything. He just nodded to show that he understood. Yun Zhongqi continued, "It has been almost a month since the Duanmu clan's herb garden was destroyed. During this month, the central continent was in a state of turmoil. Heroes were vying for supremacy, and the situation was chaotic. Before this, who would have thought that the person who caused such a change in the world would be a newborn calf like you?" Yun Zhongqi's tone was somewhat rueful. A faint, playful smile hung on his resolute and dignified face. In fact, this was exactly what he was thinking. A month ago, he also couldn't believe that Ji Tianqing could do such a feat and cause such a huge commotion. But Ji Tianqing really did it. When Yun Zhongqi first saw Ji Tianqing today, he knew that Ji Tianqing's cultivation had improved again. Within a month, he had improved from the 5th level of the Sky Origin stage to the 6th level. That was godly speed. Yun Zhongqi was very surprised. He was even more satisfied with Ji Tianqing now. He knew that even the Emperor of the Imperial Palace couldn't have such a great talent. What more could he ask for when he had such a perfect son-in-law? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and asked with a playful smile, "Uncle, how is the Duanmu clan doing?" A smug smile appeared on Yun Zhongqi's face as he uttered these words. They are struggling at death's door. They are dying. Ji Tianqing immediately understood what he meant. He nodded and said, "That's great. In 10 days, Dr. Bailey's birthday banquet will be held. All the influential forces in the central continent will gather in the Cloud Spirit Palace. Uncle, you will be able to call for help. When that time comes, the Cloud Spirit Palace will not only destroy the Duanwu clan completely, but they will also be able to expand their power." Yun Zhongqi nodded and exchanged a glance with him. Both of them had a tacit understanding of each other. After that, Yun Zhongqi's smile disappeared. He said earnestly, "Tianqing, after what happened last time, the Duanwu Huang knows about your relationship with the Cloud Spirit Palace. From now on, you don't have to hide anything. You don't have to worry about the Duanwu clan's opinion. Also, the Duanwu Huang suffered a loss once. They won't do anything to you in the near future. Now, what I am most worried about is the Murong clan and the Demon clan. You must be careful." Ji Tianqing nodded and said seriously, "The Duanwu clan is about to be destroyed. As their ally, the Murong clan will definitely help. However, I don't know why, but the Murong clan seems to be impatient. They want to kill me. I can see this from Murong Lingfeng's recent reaction. He is no longer pretending like before." Yun Zhongqi nodded and said calmly, "Yao Yao has already told me about Murong Lingfeng kidnapping the heavenly consort. In my impression, Murong Lingfeng has always been a shrewd person. I didn't think that he would be so daring as to kidnap the heavenly consort. He really doesn't know what death is. If I'm not wrong, he must have received someone's orders. That's why he acted so impatiently." When he heard this, Ji Tianqing frowned and asked curiously, "Whose orders did Murong Lingfeng receive?" Yun Zhongqi showed a playful expression and said in a low voice, "Naturally, it's the people behind the two clans. They are the real masterminds." A glint flashed in Ji Tianqing's eyes as he subconsciously said, "I'm afraid that only a certain important figure in the imperial court can make the Duanwu clan and Murong clan form an alliance and command the two clans, right?" Yun Zhongqi shook his head and said in a low voice, "It can be big or small." Ji Tianqing immediately understood what he meant. Yun Zhongqi continued, "Recently, the situation in the central state has been chaotic. Not only are various forces fighting in the dark, but the remnants of the demon clan are also restless. Although you have outstanding talent and outstanding strength, you are not afraid of the demon king's attacks. However, the demon clan is cruel and bloodthirsty. They have all kinds of despicable and vicious methods that are hard to defend against. The blood-dissipating curse is an example. Tianqing, I don't want to see you and Yao Yao get schemed against by the demon clan and be in mortal danger. Even if you can resolve 1 or 2 crises, you can't be so lucky every time." Ji Tianqing understood Yun Zhongqi's feelings. He nodded seriously and said, "Don't worry, uncle. I will be more careful in the future." Yun Zhongqi nodded and continued, "There's one more thing that I want to remind you of. This time, Miracle Dr. Bailey has returned from the southern wasteland swamp. He is about to celebrate his 300th birthday. The old man told me that he had been traveling the continent for the first half of his life. He had almost traveled the entire Tianxian continent. Now that he has returned, he wants to settle down and stop traveling the world. However, he has never taken in a disciple. He has never passed down the medical knowledge that he had spent his entire life researching. Therefore, the old man wants to use this birthday celebration as an opportunity to pick a talented disciple to pass down his legacy. As the saying goes, keep the goodies within the family. Tianqing, you are the #1 genius of our clan. You have excellent character and talent. Of course, you are the best choice." Chapter 736. Ji Tianqing had thought that the reason he was staying in Cloud Soul Palace was to get closer to the Yun family. As for Divine Dr. Bailey's 300th birthday, he was only here to perform the etiquette of a junior. He had never thought that miracle Dr. Bailey would take this opportunity to take him in as a disciple and pass on his skills to him. Moreover, Yun Zhongqi's words implied that he wanted Chen Xiaobei to seize the opportunity to become miracle Dr. Bailey's disciple. Ji Tianqing pondered for a moment, then cupped his fists at Yun Zhongqi and said, "Thank you for helping me fight for this opportunity, uncle. Miracle Dr. Bailey is famous all over the world. It would be my honor to become his disciple. I will do my best to fight for it. However, it depends on fate. I need miracle Dr. Bailey's approval. I can't force it." Yun Zhongqi could immediately tell that Ji Tianqing was rather indifferent towards this matter. He wasn't excited or expectant at all. He could fight for it or not. Therefore, he advised him again. "Tianqing, miracle Dr. Bailey is not only one of the top 3 miracle doctors in the continent, but he is also a soul-tempering stage powerhouse. If you can become his disciple, you will have a higher status and reputation. It will also bring unimaginable benefits to you, Yao Yao, and Cloud Soul Palace. Anyway, I hope you can seize the opportunity." Yun Zhongqi was the head of the Yun family and a soul-tempering stage powerhouse. His status was extraordinary. The fact that he could persuade Ji Tianqing so sincerely showed that he really valued Ji Tianqing. He had high hopes for him. Moreover, Ji Tianqing had a feeling that there was more to it than met the eye. It was just that Yun Zhongqi did not want to say it out loud. Therefore, Chen Xiaobei did not decline and nodded in agreement. After the two of them finished talking about business, they chatted for a while and then left together. Not long after the two of them left, light footsteps could be heard coming from a room at the end of the corridor. A handsome young man in a long brocade robe and holding a purple jade fan opened the door and walked out. This man was Yun Yao's cousin, the gentle and elegant gentleman, the poison doctor Zhu Fifan. However, at this moment, his expression was somewhat unsightly. His face was ice-cold, and his eyes surged with traces of hatred and coldness. He gripped the fan with both hands so tightly that his knuckles turned white. It was obvious that he was furious. "I guessed it long ago. Uncle and aunt invited Ji Tianqing to stay in Cloud Spirit Palace for a while. It's definitely not that simple. Who would have thought that when grandfather wanted to pass on his legacy, instead of choosing from his descendants, he would use the birthday banquet as an opportunity to choose a disciple. What's worse is that Ji Tianqing hasn't married my cousin yet, but my uncle already treats him as his son-in-law and wants him to inherit my grandfather's legacy." Apparently, Zhu Fifan had already guessed that Yun Zhongqi was going to discuss something important with Ji Tianqing, so he hid in the room and eavesdropped on their conversation. He didn't care about the Murong family, the Duanmu family, or the Demon clan. However, when it came to the legacy of his grandfather, Miracle Dr. Bailey, he was extremely concerned and even angry. After all, he had inherited the wishes of his deceased mother. He had been studying medicine and alchemy since he was young, and his lifelong goal was to become a miracle doctor. In the past 20 years in Cloud Spirit Palace, he had been following Bailey Ningsu and learning medicine with all his might. He was thirsty for knowledge. The thing that he coveted the most, the thing that he wanted even in his dreams, was divine Dr. Bailey's inheritance. Now, Ji Tianqing had suddenly appeared. With the support and encouragement of his uncle, Yun Zhongqi, he was going to snatch away the treasure that he coveted the most. How could he tolerate this? Ji Tianqing is just an outsider. He hasn't even entered Cloud Spirit Palace yet, but he wants to snatch my grandfather's legacy. I will never allow that. However, I have to find out what Aunt Yun wants to do first. Thinking of this, Zhu Fifan waved the fan in his hand and went downstairs. After he left the main hall, he went to Bailey Ningsu's residence calmly. 15 minutes later, Zhu Fifan entered Thousand Cloud Palace. When he saw Bailey Ningsu had just sent Yun Yao away. Zhu Fifan reported outside the door. After getting Bailey Ningsu's permission, he pushed the door open and entered. "Fifan greets Aunt Yun." Zhu Fifan walked into the room, came to the round wooden table, and bowed to Bailey Ningsu. Bailey Ningsu sat at the table in a dignified manner. Her slender hand was holding a white jade teacup, and she was slowly sipping tea. She put down the teacup and looked at Zhu Fifan with a gentle smile on her face. She asked, "Fifan, it's already so late. Why are you looking for Aunt Yun?" Zhu Fifan looked hesitant, as if he wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Bailey Ningsu raised her eyebrows and asked in confusion, "Fifan, do you have something to tell Aunt Yun? You were brought up by Aunt Yun. What is there that you can't tell Aunt Yun? Just say it. Aunt Yun won't blame you." Hearing this, Zhu Fifan's heart calmed down. He lowered his voice and said, "Aunt Yun, after the banquet, I went for a walk outside the palace and accidentally heard the conversation between Ji Tianqing and Uncle. I heard them talking about Grandpa accepting a disciple and inheriting his legacy. I don't know where Ji Tianqing got the news, but he actually pestered Uncle and asked him to plead with Grandpa for him. He actually wants to become Grandpa's last disciple and study Grandpa's unique medical skills." Zhu Fifan's tone was a bit resentful. Obviously, he was very dissatisfied with this. After hearing this, Bailey Ningsu immediately frowned and said in a deep voice, "Fifan, you actually eavesdropped on the conversation between Ji Tianqing and your uncle? How can you be so unruly?" Zhu Fifan hurriedly explained, "Aunt Yun, I didn't mean to eavesdrop. They were standing on the eaves of the corridor and I accidentally heard it. Aunt Yun. Grandpa is the top divine doctor in the continent. What kind of miraculous skills have he learned in his life? Even if Grandpa wants to inherit his legacy, he should pass it on to you or Yao Yao. How can he choose an outsider to be his disciple? Moreover, Ji Tianqing is a commoner from a small country in the south. How can he deliberately get close to cousin Yao Yao and even want to enter Cloud Soul Palace? Aunt Yun, I think that Ji Tianqing is not a good person. He must have other motives for getting close to cousin Yao Yao. However, cousin Yao Yao is kind and pure. She didn't even know that she was deceived by that kid. This kid is too hateful. He even wants to get his hands on Grandpa's legacy." In order to achieve his goal, Zhu Fifan did not hesitate to distort the truth and slander Ji Tianqing. But before he could finish, Bailey Ningsu waved her hand and interrupted him. "Shut up." Zhu Fifan immediately shut up and looked at Bailey Ningsu with an unwilling face. Bailey Ningsu looked at him and said in a somewhat reproachful tone, "Fifan, are you blaming your grandpa for being unreasonable?" Fifan wouldn't dare. Zhu Fifan hurriedly lowered his head and admitted his mistake. Bailey Ningsu calmly said, "Fifan, although Ji Tianqing's status is not enough to become the son-in-law of Cloud Soul Palace, he has a bright future and a good character. Yao Yao's eyes are like torches. How can the person she wants to entrust her life to be a mediocre person? You don't know Ji Tianqing well. Don't criticize him in the future. Don't make Yao Yao unhappy. As for your grandpa's legacy, he has his own plans. It's not up to us to criticize him." But Zhu Fifan was unwilling and wanted to say something more. Bailey Ningsu waved her hand and said in a dignified tone, "No need to say anything more. I know what I'm doing. You can leave." Zhu Fifan immediately shut up and did not say anything else. He pursed his lips unwillingly and suppressed the anger in his heart. "Aunt Yun, rest early. Fifan will leave now." He bowed to Bailey Ningsu and hurriedly left the room, turning to leave. However, when he walked out of the Thousand Cloud Palace, his face turned cold. He murmured, "In the past, Aunt Yun did not look Ji Tianqing in the eye, but now she's speaking up for him." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.